Welcome back to the Brave Podcast. My name is Angelo, aka Exploring with Angelo here on YouTube. Normally you find me out there hunting ghosts, going to strange places, going to abandoned places, that sort of thing. Here on this show, the Brave Podcast, we do something a little bit different. We bring in guests a lot of the time and have pretty random conversations about just about anything. So today is going to get a little bit interesting because we're going to talk about business, self-help sort of stuff and mindset and pretty important stuff. But before we get into that, let me introduce my co-host, Moshi.
Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Mohammed. I'm Mo. On YouTube and Instagram, I'm Moshi-Yo. And today, I need to remind you, hey, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, and we're on Apple Podcasts. So after you finish this episode, give us a 5-star rating. Please, that'd be cool. It'd be so cool of you. Today, I'm going to introduce my new friend, Alex Canzian. Did I pronounce that right?
Appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely.
Welcome to the show,
Nailed
Alex.
it.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, it's been a little while since we've seen each other. I think the last time we saw each other was probably pickup soccer.
Yeah, it was a WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
Maybe about 2 years ago.
Yeah, something like that. I don't even remember how I got involved in that. I think somebody from our old team,
Steve.
which is how we originally met. And it's kind of funny how everybody is such a small world because everybody kind of knows each other because you know Steve. Somehow you knew Steve.
Tall Steve. Steve.
Yes.
He went to North Park.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, a lot of you guys who are probably watching don't know, but I used to be absolutely obsessed with soccer or football. And I used to play up into, my adult ages. And then eventually just got really busy here on YouTube and just really don't have the time. Plus, sometimes I'm not even really in the country all that often. Now more so than before because obviously we're working on the podcast and I'm just kind of committed to that. But that's how we met. So we had a team years ago. What was the name of the team? I don't even remember anymore.
It was an Arsenal yellow jerseys.
Yeah.
I think we were called Iceborne.
Oh, no. Iceborne first, and then I think it was the Mean Machine.
Then we changed the Mean Machine,
yeah. So those were some good times.
And
so.
you supplied us the jerseys for it.
I did.
Let's remember.
I
Credit
did.
to you.
Oh, yeah.
So back in the day, Mo and I used to own a business where we used to do sporting goods. We started out really with jerseys and things like that.
Oh, shoot. I didn't know you were with him.
Yeah, so Mo was actually my business partner in that. And and then I basically got involved with the team and we needed jerseys. So I just ordered them for everybody pretty much at cost. I don't think I really made any profit on that just because it was for just us guys.
Well,
right?
now that I know that, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
wow.
no worries. But yeah, it was a good time playing. At the time I was actually playing on 2 teams. I was playing with you guys and then I was playing with some co-ed teams, so girls and dudes. Both teams kind of... So I'd say Mean Machine was probably a little bit better because we actually had some players who knew how to play. And then obviously we had a couple of weak links. But even with that, it was funny because there was one season we did pretty good.
I think we did a couple
distance.
of good seasons.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
we
did pretty well because I think we were the oldest team, one of the oldest teams in the league.
Yeah.
But we knew coordination, where we're going to be on the field. And yeah, I do agree. I did get competitive as well as others, though it was a great league, right? It was. Yeah. It's now called Paramount now because it used to be called the Hershey.
Yeah, they changed the name of the building. If any of you guys are from Mississauga, Ontario, you know what we're talking about. But yeah, that's where we used to play our men's league. And then I was also doing co-ed at the time. I've played on a whole bunch of different random leagues. I remember one team that I played on. It was a 35 and up. It was outdoor in Bolton. It was the Bolton Wanderers Club.
Oh, that's a great club.
Yeah, and it was 35 and up. Was 35 was the average age of the teams overall that were supposed to play. But most of the guys that we were playing with were 55, 60 years old.
Oh my God.
So it was
Never
tough.
mind.
Yeah, and then it was me. My friend Sal was there for a little while. We were probably 19, 20 years old. So we were trying our best to carry the team because we were the only ones who had, for one, experience, and number two, our age kind of benefited us because we were, faster. We had, we could play longer and stuff like that.
Was that the league that you couldn't slide tackle?
That's pretty much every league.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, that was just an adult league, right?
Okay.
So nobody wanted to slide tackle, and because people had to work the next day.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
so,
yeah.
They didn't want to, do that. But good times, man. I remember. I wish I could still had more time in my life to, be able to play more sports, but duty calls sometimes, right? You got to focus on your business and yourself, and I think that's what we're gonna have quite an interesting conversation about tonight. Things like mindset, like I had mentioned, and what it takes to kind of be successful in sales and business, whatever it is that you're doing. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about what you're up to these days. Like, what are you doing?
Oh boy. Well, I just want to say, because of soccer in our league, that's how I met you.
Yeah.
It was through Rafik. A lot of people don't know that. But if it weren't for that, I would never have met you and even be here. So it's amazing how connections work out these days, right?
Yeah, exactly.
As far as me goes, geez, I mean, you want me to start from the beginning, or what am I doing now?
Yeah.
Okay. This is crazy. I actually was thought I was going to be a meteorologist when I was
really?
10 or 11, 12 years old. It's so stupid, but I want to be like a storm chaser, catch tornadoes. I used to watch National Geographic.
That's super cool.
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But then I realized that I wasn't good at science. So all of this, you know how it is, like teachers when they're young, they're like, what's your career going to be?
Yeah.
At grade 8, grade 9, grade 10, and you just have to think of an answer. And if you don't, then there's something wrong with you. So I had to think of something that I was watching, and that was the first thing came up to mind. And I think one summer I went to Environment Canada, did a tour of what they did. It seemed pretty interesting, but I tell you, science was not my thing.
No. I guess it's kind of like, I guess, being a doctor and not knowing, the anatomy is a little bit of a bad combination, I guess.
Let alone the student loans.
Yeah.
Because it takes you 10 years to pay it off.
Oh, yeah, for real. No kidding.
So you had to be all in. And I guess at that time I was like, no, that's not for me. But actually, it's funny. I'll tell you guys a funny story. So grade 10, that was 2002 for me. The first 2 classes of the day was math and science. And the World Cup was on that year. I think it was Japan and South Korea. And the time zones was 4 or 5 a.m. games. And you know how much we love soccer.
Yeah.
I didn't miss any game. But at the end of that year, it was June usually when the World Cup is. I failed both those classes. And of course,
I wonder why. We're more motivated to watch soccer.
But that's the thing. My parents didn't believe me. They thought, oh, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
You're not getting good grades. I'm like, I was playing and watching soccer all the time. So I had to suck up 1 month of summer school to prove them wrong.
Yeah.
But funny enough, science was out of the equation after that. But I got into radio broadcasting at Seneca. I was there from 05 to 08. That was awesome. Every Thursday throughout the whole campus, you get a 1 hour, 2 hour session of playing your own music. You do a news segment, you do sports. I had people tuning into Seneca Radio from Brampton, Woodbridge, people that I knew. It was great.
That's super cool.
And it was awesome. And that's when Facebook just came out right after MySpace.
Yeah.
Right? I think there was High Five, MySpace, and then Facebook, and then it reunited people that I haven't seen in a while from elementary school. That was awesome. So I did that for, it was a 3-year accelerated program we went through the summers. And then
what was your plan for that? So you signed up for the radio broadcast course. What did you want to do with that?
I wanted to be on air and just be maybe in sports, like the Fan 590 or the Edge 102. I was a big Edge 102 fan. Kudos to my dad. We used to listen to the history of new music and all that on Sundays.
What was his name?
Alan Cross.
Alan Cross.
Yeah, good times. He always had that grit voice, and he just makes you want to just keep on listening. Yeah. And then they had the all request hour. But besides that, that was the goal. And once I graduated, I realized, oh, shoot, all the people in my class, I'm competing for them for this career. And it hit me. And things got ugly at certain points where, all of a sudden people were friends playing hacky sack on breaks. And all of a sudden they're like, I'm going to get this job and you're not. So anyways, I did some volunteer at Aboriginal Voices Radio. Just for you guys know, I am half Aboriginal and half Italian. So there was a little bit of an advantage, but I'm not going to say no to it. So I did that. And then I believe I was going to get an opportunity to work at least part-time and then go full-time production work. But I saw the light at the end of the tunnel is okay, you know what? Get your feet wet in production and then work your way up to be a jock. But with that being said, just before that happened, it was the recession, which is essentially the last recession before COVID. So
that was
that
what, 2008,
2009 in between. So that happened. Meanwhile, on the side, I've been working at a grocery store for about 6 years at that point. Side gig money. It was good times. And I said, you know what? What's the second career I want to do? And then my dad says he wants to retire at 55 years old. By the way, for the record, right now he's living happily, loving retirement. So it's like, I want to get into finances. How does he retire at 55? A lot of people say the narrative is to retire at 65. So pursued, finances. I was at a bank for about 7 years. Obviously, you plateau. You want to get something more out of it. I felt like I deserved more for what I got paid for. And I decided to, I want to work at like a Porsche dealership. I'm emphatic with cars. I can talk cars all day. I saw your Hot Wheels there. It brings me.
Those are Mo's Hot Wheels.
Oh, those are Mo's Hot Wheels. Okay. Well, I thought it was his. But he did have a Subaru. You got to keep in mind, right?
Yeah, I still have a Subaru.
There you go, right?
Subaru forever, right?
There you go, right? I'm never a point A to point B kind of guy, right? Yeah. But didn't work at a Porsche dealership, but I worked at still do. I work in the finance department, take away my banking skills and try to get people approved for financing. We do cash deals. We work with all different kind of cars. So we try to get the best interest rates, the best, safety, reliability, all that kind of stuff. And then on the side, I also do like financial protection, investment strategies, diversifying people's portfolio. So there's no loopholes. We want to make sure that all of their financial blueprints are indestructible. There's nothing that's out of the ordinary. And I do a little bit of digital currency on the side as gambling stuff, but that's just...
So that's like cryptocurrency type of stuff?
Yeah, it gives me a little bit of like passive income, which is awesome. I never thought I'd get into it, but I know that if I lose it, I'm okay because that's where I put that pool in, right? But that's what I'm doing, man. Just helping people with their, helping lives is at the end of the day. I don't like flexing what I do. I say, look, if you need help, I'll help you out. If you don't, you know how to get a hold of me. And that's the way we're going to go.
Nice.
We'll see what happens from there.
No pressure.
Yeah, exactly. The way I see it, a lot of the finance industry for years has just been in a place where it was beneficial to the finance companies and not so beneficial to the average and ordinary people out there who could not be served properly, so to say. Like, we've had our friend Daniel on here, and he does something similar. He works with another company that deals with term life insurance and investments, debt, and all that kind of stuff. And that's actually how Mo and I became good friends. We had met years before that, working together at Canadian Tire, or Crappy Tire as we call it in Canada. If you're Canadian, you know exactly what we're talking about. But yeah, so we met there, and then eventually he brought me into the business and finance, and I learned a lot about mindset and business and working for yourself and all that fun stuff. And I think that's kind of why I like what you talk, because you do a lot of stuff on TikTok. I don't know if you're on YouTube or plan on going into other social media avenues, but a lot of the stuff that you talk to is very interesting. And it's a lot of the stuff that I remember learning years ago when I was just kind of starting out in business and finding my way as I was a young adult and trying to succeed and achieve something. And I always kind of saw myself as somebody that wanted to do something relatively unique. I knew I didn't want to, after high school, I knew I didn't want to go to school, just because, not that school's bad, however, I just didn't see the point in taking out huge amounts of loans to become a student and, for no reason whatsoever, and not end up using it for anything, right? If you're going to be a doctor, obviously you got to go to school. If you're going to be a lawyer, you want a lawyer. If you're going to hire a lawyer, you're going to want an educated lawyer, right? Not just some every average Joe Blow who said he read law out of a library, which you can do too, but you still got to be certified and whatnot, so that way you can work in a certain industry. So I kind of knew that I didn't want to take that sort of direction, and I had been given a sort of course in financial literacy through the company. So I was able to get licensed in the mutual funds area. I was licensed at one point in the life insurance field.
I never knew that.
Yeah, so that was a long time ago. Wow. And then eventually we started our own business, and then eventually I ended up on YouTube, and my career is now here, right? But I feel like a lot of the things that I've learned over the years kind of helped me not only get to where I was, but kind of figure out how to how to organize it, even here on YouTube, how to kind of treat it like, it's fun, you're able to be creative, but also kind of treat it in a way that it's like a business, right? Like we were talking before the show about, treating things like hobbies obviously don't pay very well. If you collected, hockey cards or random little things, maybe when you were younger, obviously it didn't pay very well. So I always kind of had the mindset of, yes, we're going to have fun here on YouTube. We're going to do something very unique and cool, and but also kind of treat it like a business at the end of the day. So I feel like a lot of the mindset that I learned from the businesses that we had in the past, and obviously learning information from a lot of other people having interesting conversations, which we're about to do here. But yeah, what are your so do you technically work for yourself? Is that what you do?
Well, it's a brokerage, right? So basically, we can write things off like receipts, taking the 407 to get to certain destinations. So there are perks to it. It will say this, it is challenging. So yes, mindset is everything. And it's not just for someone's career.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good analogy is, I start 5 a.m., go to the gym. That just keeps the mind focused. Or the Wim Hof method. I don't know if anyone's even familiar with that.
Breathing.
The breathing, but the cold shower or the cold plunge.
Oh, okay.
Now, I don't have a cold plunge device, but I do the cold showers. It is absolutely amazing. Fully recommended. But
what would you say when it comes to cold showers? Like, what does it do?
It kind of, to a psychological standpoint, the reptilian brain all of a sudden goes to fight or flight mode, right? And it's like you're trying to like battle it. It's cold at first because once again you're going into the uncomfortable, realm, and then all of a sudden you master it 2 or 3 or 4 days, and then all of a sudden it becomes like you just feel like you're focused and ready for the day. And it's like you have a blueprint ready to go for you. Right. It's just hard to explain unless you try it out yourself. But it's like you going into a pool, and instead of going in slowly or on a beach, you just jump right in. And that's what it is. We have to stay there for a good few minutes. And then all of a sudden, that's your baseline. Then you get better and better and better. Now, for the record, I mean, if you have like health issues, please don't do it.
Contact your doctor before you do anything like that.
Do not take this as health.
If you have experiences from hypothermia, please don't do it, right? But it's the same thing. Like mindset is the first thing. It is the foundation, I think, to get you to where the results go. Back to what I do, helping people with cars, helping people with investments. It's a product. People are going to be like, okay, I'm not really interested in it. You got to pinpoint the short-term and the long-term results to get to them where they need to go. As everyone has a vision, you got to paint that. You got to put that person in that imaginary state, right? Even the word just saying, imagine, you, God forbid, you pass away. Your family is going to be taken care of. Are they going to have to move schools, or does your wife have to have 2 jobs to support your family? Then all of a sudden that hits them. But until you say that without results, they're going to think you're just selling them something. So you have to really put curiosity into it, but to know that you're not just a number, you're actually a person you're willing to help. So when you were kind of mentioning earlier about, I took finances, I had mindset. I think all of that plays a role in our lives, which is why I'm probably going to stay in this career for a long time, is because everyone's always going to be needing that, especially during the COVID era, post-COVID era. People are still hearing the news of how crazy the interest rates are going up, inflation's going up. Of course, that's all they're going to be talking about, but that's the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. You have to really brainstorm it and get rid of your emotions. What's the logical thing to do? Multiple source of income is the way to go. You can't rely on one source.
Yeah. Right? No, I think that's, especially nowadays, it's...
adaptable. You have to be adaptable
exactly.
in this society, in this real world. Like, life's unfair. I get it. Well, we're all going through. You just got to keep moving without regret, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when things get tough and you're not making enough money, you're having trouble trying to pay your bills. For me, the one thing I was always taught was go out and make more money, right? And I know for some people that might be challenging, but try and think, I do genuinely think every human being has some sort of sense or semblance of creativity where they can come up with some type of maybe service or product that they can create, or, buy wholesale and then resell it on the market, and be able to maybe, like you said, make another stream of revenue. And I think that would be very beneficial for people. But I feel like a lot of people put themselves in this box and they can't seem to figure out a way to get outside of that box, where they miss opportunities. They're just, I'm not interested, or I don't have the extra time. And it's like, and then I see like people that I know that they always tell me that, they're motivated to go out there and actually do something and be successful in maybe a side business, or try to learn something different that could actually make them an extra revenue stream. And then you end up seeing how much time they're flipping through TikTok. And then once they're done with TikTok, they're going through Instagram Reels. And then after that, they're playing a video game and they're like, oh, I'll get started in half an hour. Oh, I'll get started in an hour, right? And then by the end of the night, 11, 12 o'clock rolls around and you're like, oh, well, where did the day go, right? So for me, I kind of feel like a lot of times some people have to put things in front of them. I do that. I make a lot of notes throughout the day of what I need to do.
Agreed.
Like yesterday, I had an entire to-do list, and so I put them in priority, obviously, what needs to be done first, which was like, edit my main channel video, get prepared for this, upload this, and create 2 shorts, do another short for the podcast channel, just so it's uploaded and ready to go. But I feel like a lot of people don't do that, and then they just, they never get around to doing things because they don't schedule it or plan it out. And if it's out of sight, out of mind, right? If you don't see it, you're just not going to remember to do something, right? And that one little thing could be have massive potential to help you succeed. Like for me, I know that I hate doing them, and I know my audience, sometimes some people don't really like seeing shorts because it's annoying, because they prefer, watching something for an hour, like a movie, like I normally do. But they don't understand that a lot of times a short draws in new people, or it gets people excited to watch a certain video, or it might remind them of a video that they maybe missed, but it can pull in a huge number of new audience members, right? Which is beneficial to the business, because obviously it costs a lot of money to do what it is that I do. It's not, something that I just get to do for free, right? So
it's just like a teaser trailer for a movie.
Yeah.
Like a blockbuster movie that's coming out a year later, and you're like, oh my God, I have to wait that long, but yet you're saying that, but you're going to watch it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a great hook.
Yeah.
I do believe. And by the way, there was 2 things you mentioned there earlier that really hit home. Motivation, right? We're not going to be motivated every day, right? What comes next is discipline, right? That's what fathers are for. You hope all fathers are like that, is to teach that to their son, to their daughter, discipline, because motivation expires, right? Discipline is going to keep you going through that suffering stages, right? David Goggins, if you guys ever watched that, he's all about, like, he had to go through that suffering to get to his goals and his dreams of where he needs to be. And I do think it's a non-negotiable for every guy out there. You have to expect that, and you just got to keep going. Yeah. Right? I think that's why guys' nights are very critical. I feel keep each other accountable.
Yeah.
Right?
For me, I see a lot of, especially with the generations that are younger than us. How old are you?
Oh boy, I just turned 37, but 37. Age is just a number.
Yeah, you don't look a day over 29. So, but yes. I mean, so we're a little bit, I'm 32. You're, I think, 34,
35,
37. So we're all kind of, within roughly more or less the same generation. But the one thing that I'm noticing more common than not with the younger generation is that they're very afraid of working hard. And what I mean by working hard is things like, actually doing physical labor, like going into construction or going into, some form of a trade or whatever it might be. And they get stuck in this routine where for years they end up at this dead end part-time job after school, whether they went to school or didn't go to school. And they're just afraid to get a little bit dirty, right? To do the things, even if they don't like it, right? I mean, I've known tons of people who did jobs for many, many years and they didn't like the job, but they did it because maybe it paid well, it helped their family, or it gave them a better opportunity in the future. They were able to, make a larger income instead of, working at Tim Hortons or working at like a grocery store or something, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to make a higher income, we all know that construction workers make a half decent income in this country at the very least. Construction workers, other skilled trades like, electricians, plumbers, that sort of thing.
And as they should. Yeah. Because they're the ones that keeping the infrastructure intact.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? These guys work hard. They work tirelessly, right? But anytime I've recommended it, right? So if I talk to one of my friends who's much younger than us, he's I think like 24, 25 or something like that, and they're not really doing much of anything, right? But I'm like, okay, well, why don't you go into a trade, or why don't you go into HVAC or something? Like, I know a guy in HVAC, I can get you a job, right? He's like, I don't really want to do that. I'm like, well, why don't you go? My dad works for a concrete forming company. I can get you a job there, just like that, right? If I wasn't doing this, that's probably where I would have been, at least for now, right? To make, a decent income to further get myself a little bit ahead. But they're like, I don't really want to do that. And then they stay stuck for years and doing the exact same thing. And it's like, okay, well, what are you waiting for? Like, does something that you really want to do have to come and slap you across the face for you to get excited to actually want to do something, right? So, okay, well, then you're going to stay stuck in the same position that you've always been in because you're afraid to try something that you don't know if you're going to like or not, or you're just automatically thinking that you're not going to like, right? So it's just like food. If you don't try it, sometimes you won't like it. And then you try food and you're like, oh, well, actually that turned out to be really enjoyable, right? It's kind of like wine. You buy a bottle of wine that you don't know the brand of, and you're not sure if you're going to like it. But the only way you're going to find out is by buying the bottle, corking it, and then trying it. That's literally the only way. And that sometimes works with, careers and jobs and that type of stuff too. So
I do think the younger generation, they're studs. There are studs there. They're smart. They're intelligent. But once again, that uncomfortable, they don't like it. No one likes it. But we have to step into it.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you're going on vacation somewhere. No one likes to going through customs to get to where you got to go. No one talks about that during your vacation. No, you're going to talk about where you're going to go. And I think it also depends who they're hanging out with as well.
Definitely.
Like, I mean, if all of them are envious of each other, of trying to succeed, that's not the best circle to be in. You got to get rid of them right away. I hate to say it, but as much as I'm giving someone advice like you, Mo, or you, Angelo, I can't forge your signature. You're going to have to be the one that's going to catapult you to the next step. And yes, that is being uncomfortable. That's what you got to go through.
Yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think it's perfectionism. If I think about it, they don't want anything to go wrong, but confidence is the action itself.
Yeah.
Right. But also you could say maybe if people struggle with that, they created an idea, but they don't know how to do it, or they don't know when to do it. Action is the confidence factor, and failure and quitting is not the same thing. Right. So.
Yeah. You actually brought up a good point where you said the younger generation, their ability, the opportunities that they have, the ability to work smart rather than hard, right? Like I did go into the one side where, working hard, whether it's, hard labor, whether it's a skilled trade, that kind of stuff is a little bit of a combination of both, right? Because when you talk to somebody, let's say an electrician, they got to know how to wire up a house properly so that way they do not hurt themselves in the process, and they also make sure that the house doesn't catch on fire when somebody finally moves in. But the other thing too is that the opportunity with technology, right? And there's so many people, like I know so many people after I kind of made it here on YouTube, I guess being, passing 100,000 subs and making a decent living, and I'm doing okay, right? But there's a lot of people that I've run into that all get this crazy idea where it's like they want to do YouTube themselves and they want to be successful, but months and months and months go by. They can't come up with a single idea to maybe go out and create a video. And then I hear all these other people, like you mentioned, how there's a lot of people in the younger generation who are studs, who are actually being very intelligent about it. And I wanted to bring it up. A friend of mine, Luca DiCaprio, he moved out to, I'm not sure if you know him, he went to DeVille. This guy is so intelligent, right? Just anytime I talk to him, whether it's, politics or talking about technology, he's just, his ability to critically think is amazing, but he works super smart, hard, but also smart at the same time. And recently he came up with this idea, and he's currently developing an app. Well, he actually released it already, but he developed this app, and it's absolutely genius. This app, what it does is it works, side by side with another app. So for example, Netflix. So you'd be watching Netflix, and then you'd have a woman on your screen, or a man, or whoever the heck is showing up on the screen. I just saw like a little widget of what he was producing, and basically it's doing sign language. So somehow this program is reading what the people are saying in this show, and there's a lady who's literally doing sign language.
Wow.
And I'm like, dude, that's incredible. Like that.
Wow.
Not only are you helping a lot of people, because I thought about this, because I get a lot of comments all the time of people who are either, deaf or they're hard of hearing, and when they watch my videos, a lot of the times there is closed captions on YouTube, but it takes a long time for it to process, and sometimes it's not always accurate.
And then the brain doesn't really process it quickly enough. Right,
exactly. So the issue that I have is that I get comments all the time like, oh, can you add closed captions? Can you do this? And can you do that? And it's like, honestly, dude, like I do all the work myself, right? From beginning to I go out and film. I edit all my own videos. I'm planning other haunted locations or other projects, and then we're also here. So I got a lot to do. I don't have the time to sit there. Unfortunately, I would like to, but I don't have the time to sit there and create all the closed captions for every hour-long video that I do. So I think it's like a really amazing idea. And he said he's going to be working on the part for YouTube specifically, because I guess it's got to work with like the way their system is designed.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But to my point is like, the fact that he had the ability to come up with something like that, and it's such a genius idea, and I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a lot of money, and I'm all for it, man. I hope the guy makes millions of dollars on it. He absolutely deserves it. Like coming up with
like it's so obvious, because there are huge communities like that worldwide, but yet you don't think of it in the moment that you're conversing with someone like on this podcast. And I hear that, I'm like, I'm all for that.
Yeah,
like that's very innovative.
Yeah, man.
It's an amazing idea, and I think he's going to go very, very far with it. And he comes up with all sorts of other cool stuff too. I see a lot of his
I can only imagine what's
projects,
next.
Yeah, he's a engineer by trade, so he's really, really intelligent. But sometimes you got to take those leaps of faith and try to do something, and just kind of hope for the best, because you don't really know all the time if things are going to work out. You just got to try it. Try the apple pie. You might like the apple pie, right? Or maybe you'll like the rhubarb, but you don't know unless you try it, right? So I think we're all kind of on the same page with that. I mean, I know Mo is now trying to work a little bit more diligently on YouTube, and I think you're motivated by obviously wanting to be successful for your family, but also you don't want to be maybe stuck where you're at for the rest of your life. I think that's important.
I definitely want to work for myself. I want to be the thing that gets me the most about working a job for someone else is all your efforts are going towards them, and it's you're just getting a little piece of the pie at the end of the week, where you can kill yourself, and at the end of the year they're just like, yeah, you know what, you did well this year, here's a 5% bump. And if I was just working that hard just purely for myself, the limits are the sky's the limit, you can say. So,
you know what?
Definitely.
You got to keep climbing those mountains. The mountains just have to keep climbing nonstop. You become stagnant, then all of a sudden you become too comfortable.
Yep.
And sometimes even using certain vocabulary words, you may have to even remove them entirely. Like I even try to say or replace the word busy with productive. It just sounds so much better throughout the day. Or if I get home, it's a long day. Instead of me saying I'm tired and exhausted, I just say, you know what, I'm gonna just hit the hay. It sounds humorous, but I'd rather say that, but it just sounds so much better.
I have certainly heard that the words you use have energy, and they affect you. There's the things you're saying literally affect you. And so, like you said, saying I'm busy, that kind of puts you in a mode that's like, you know what, I'm kind of busy. I don't have to do this thing that I could be doing, So absolutely.
Like you can have 10 people in the room right now, and if they don't really want to talk today, or they really don't know what to say, the first couple of things they're going to say is, yeah, I've been busy. Yeah, I've been good.
Yeah.
Right?
And then you get that response, busy's good, no? Right? But I mean, busy could be good or bad. That doesn't really mean anything, right?
This is a mini funny thing. So this is a pet peeve of mine, where when someone says, I say, how are you doing? Good. Nothing against the other person. I realized one day when I was at the bank, it was a 10-story building, and I happened to be on this elevator where all the colleagues knew each other, and I didn't know them because there's so many departments, right? And the manager, office manager, said hi to every single one, which is great service. All of them said good. All of them said good. That was it. And maybe it's just me overthinking it, but good also can mean to someone as not good, or maybe good as I don't want to talk to you, or good as in my life is boring. There's so much stuff that's in that word. I don't even know what that word means anymore. I'd rather someone say, you know what? I'm not having the greatest day. That shows you're genuine, right? You're opening up. I know I don't expect everyone to make friends with people at work. That's not what I'm saying. But at least be true to yourself. It's like going to a restaurant. Maybe once again, this is me, where you get served by you get served by a server and they're faking the smile. Like I don't know what it is. Just tell me you're having a bad day. Maybe that's not too much to ask. I will tip 20-30% for you saying I'm not having the greatest day, you being upfront with me, so that I know if the service is lackluster, I know you opened up to me at the beginning and set the expectations. I'm all about customer service, right? But it's just so interesting how that all works, like good and busy. It's just like, well, that's kind of vague.
It's kind of like just very, like you said, very vague, very generic responses. I remember when we used to be in the business, I remember the one response, but that was more just as like a sales kind of thing, was to always be like, I'm fantastic. But sometimes by saying it, you put it, even if you're having a shitty day, and then all of a sudden you tell people, I'm doing fantastic, I'm doing great. You kind of almost, it's like placeboing yourself, where you're saying it to yourself and you're like,
you're elevated.
You're kind of like, it has an effect on yourself when you say it, because then you start thinking like, am I fantastic? You know what? Today's really not that bad. I actually am doing fantastic today. And that's just kind of the mindset that you end up going on with throughout the rest of the day or the week or whatever it might be, right?
And in the end, you may make their day as well. That's always a good feeling hearing that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I feel like people really need to smile more, for one. I feel like people go around, especially here, I don't know what it is.
Everyone's in a rush, 9 to 5.
Yeah. Everybody's, and that's the one thing that I like when I go to the South US, is I feel like I experience something different. People are generally slower, not like obviously mentally or anything like that, but like they take more time, they slow down, they actually are willing to have a conversation, right? Where they're opening up and they're telling stories. And I don't find I get that as often when I'm like either here in Canada or in the northern part of the United States. But as soon as I go down south, like I'm talking like Georgia, Florida, the deep south as they call it, those kinds of areas, just it's a slower pace, right? People, really? I feel like,
geographical.
I will say Nashville had amazing. Like, I didn't expect it to be that awesome, but it was awesome when I went. Everyone was so friendly. The positive vibes you're feeling.
Everyone wants to be your friend.
Yeah. They're willing to take a few minutes of their day to see how you're doing. And I did not see any, it's a stretch, but didn't see anyone being sad or dissatisfied when we went on an Airbnb there many years ago. I would go there again. That was a great city.
Yeah, I've been thinking about Tennessee very often, but for me, I personally, like, my favorites are like heading towards South Carolina, Georgia. I just find the people there are very welcoming, and I feel it has a lot obviously to do with their culture, where it's Southern style comfort, right? Where they're very welcoming. They like bring you into their home, cook you a home cooked meal, that type of thing, right? Whereas like in the north, they're like, okay, come if you want to come and see me, you gotta have a quick coffee and then get the fuck out, right? Whereas over there, they're like, no, you stay as long as you want, right? Like they're very it's just a different culture.
I just think the upbringing, they already knew that values and principles are very important, not just for strangers, but family, most importantly, I must say that, but anyone they come across with, because it's just hardwired and ingrained in their brain, right? And that's awesome. I remember going to Myrtle Beach many years ago, and it was always a good time.
South Carolina, baby. Yeah, I like going to Charleston, South Carolina is really cool. I'm like a history buff, right? So I like they have a lot of historical buildings and everything's it's such a different vibe, right? Plus they got the ocean, stupid bug. But yeah, and then Savannah, Georgia is like same thing. It's like the culture, right? I remember I always go to the same restaurant, and it's not even the best food like out there, but it's pretty good, and I like the employees, like the way they interact with people is fantastic. What's it called? It's called the Lady and Sons by Patricia Paula Deen. Sorry, Paula Deen. She's a very well-known chef, and I think she had like a show or something. I don't even know. I think she's got a whole bunch of restaurants.
Like it is here, right?
Sort of, yeah.
Okay.
Like well, not really. It's its own standalone restaurant. There's 3 different floors. So sometimes they'll tell you, oh, go up to the elevator, and then somebody will seat you over there. And it's cool because the way it's all southern type of food. So you got your chicken and dumplings, and it's not dumplings, it's dumplings, right? With an N apostrophe.
Like Ireland, Dublin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Then you got your fried chicken and your casseroles and all that cool stuff. And it's like every single employee that I've ever encountered in that same restaurant has always been super, super pleasant. They start talking about stories. So basically the way it works is you order a certain amount of meats. So you can order 2 meats, 3 meats, and then 4 sides, which could be like, your casserole, your corn. Huge meal. Oh, it's massive. And then they also give you your cornbread at the beginning, biscuits, and then you get your dessert at the end. So it's based on how many people you're with. You pay per person, but it's unlimited, right? So at first, like let's say you order fried chicken along with the dumplings and whatever you decide to, catfish or something.
So it's like East Side Mario's.
Sort of, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Like
so you keep telling them like, oh, bring more of the fried chicken, please, and they just keep bringing more. But it was funny because I remember the last time I went with my friends Lamar and Chelsea, there was this woman who was working there, and we were like joking around like, oh, I want to bring some of this home, and I was obviously, I know you can't, right? Because it's sort of like a buffet style. You can't take things to go. Yeah. But she was talking about, she's like, y'all be surprised how many people try and steal food from this place. People shoving food in their purse and this and this and that. Like people put that. She's like, I've had people put food in their shoes before.
Whoa.
I'm like, dude, I'm like, what? Like, obviously they wrapped it up in a napkin or whatever, then shoved it in their shoes. And then the waitress like, nah, you can't do that, right? Like,
would you please return those products back, please, from your shoe?
I'll take those, please.
And you know what? I'll take your shoes too.
Exactly. So it's pretty funny. But there was another employee that I remember worked up in the bar, and I remember she served me the first time I had ever gone there, and she was like talking to me. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm from Canada. I'm fleeing the oppressive lockdowns that we're experiencing in Canada that were just going on forever. So I left, and now I'm down here experiencing what it's like to be free once again. I'm in your restaurant. I'm enjoying food, whatever. And then I remember, I think a month later, because that was when I was away for about 2.5 months. I was on the road, and I went back and forth to Florida probably 2 or 3 times. And I remember I went back to the restaurant, and she was there again, and she actually remembered me, right? She's like, oh my God, the Canadian, how you doing? She's like, what are you doing back here? I'm like, I decided to come back to Savannah, right? Like, you treated me so good, I decided I wanted to come back. But everybody that I encounter over there is like fantastic, right? So many like really, really like super nice people. They just want to be your friend. They want to have conversations with you. And I just feel like over here we do get it sometimes, but it's just not that
it's
often.
An oddball. Yeah. In the whole aspect of things, right?
And I kind of feel like people's perspective of Canadians, not that we're total dicks, but we're not as nice as people often think Canadians are nice. Try and cut off a Canadian and see what you get. Cut off a Quebecois and see what you get. Tabarnak, right?
I was expecting like all igloos. That's the normal cliche thing I hear.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like we all live in igloos and we ride around.
I have an Airbnb
igloo
just up the street.
Yeah, exactly. Come to my TP, right? So
the server part you were talking about, I think it's one crazy hard job to do.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, they're the master rapport builders. Like for instance, like your server remembers you. Like that alone is awesome. I don't expect that, but that's like ambassador service level that wants me to come back again. And you said the food was all right, but now to come to think of it, you were describing the food, how tasty it was as the story went on, right? Because you've already respected them so much about how much they care about their clients or customers. It's just fantastic to hear.
Yeah.
And out of all places, if you ask people where you would want to travel to in the U.S., I mean, I'm not going to lie, Charleston and what is it, Savannah?
Savannah, Georgia.
Like, it's not something that would come in my mind.
Right.
I didn't think Miami or Vegas or L.A. or whatever. So that's awesome. That's a couple of places I might consider.
I've been to all those places. I've been to Vegas. I've been to Miami. Haven't been to L.A. yet. To be honest, there's some things that I would enjoy going to L.A. for, but to be honest, it's just not really. Not really my realm. I like kind of like, smaller town kind of vibes and historic type of stuff. That's just me. That's just what I like.
Would you like
personally.
go to like San Diego or San Francisco?
Maybe. Definitely not San Francisco. San Francisco is in a very rough place right now.
I never knew that.
I would if you do go to San Francisco, you got to be very cautious as to where you go. The only problem is that their crime is getting a little bit getting a lot out of control.
I think the whole state is,
yeah. So California is kind of in a weird position right now where they got some problems to solve, right? So for me, I just not that nothing ever happens down in Charleston. Like there is a section of Charleston I've heard that's a little bit more ghetto and it's a little bit more rough and there's more crime, obviously. And I've been told, obviously you're not going to hang out in those places by yourself at night. Just be cautious, right? Do your research and know where you're going when you're traveling, right? So
I mean, every metropolitan area is always going to have that section of, you just
have it here,
there, right?
Yeah, we have it here in Toronto too. There's certain sections that, there's areas that don't go and hang out by yourself in the middle of the night because there is a possibility that somebody or something bad could happen to you, right? So you never know. Just be very, very careful. But there's just certain places. I like Vegas. Like the vibe is cool in Vegas. Have you been to Vegas?
Bucket list. Still my bucket list.
Haven't done it. Oh, it's cool to experience at least once or twice. It's a vibe. It's oh man. But the thing that kind of your brain kind of has to process is that everything is a recreation of something else. It's cool how it's all kind of like a cluster all together, and it is a fun experience. I think it's more fun or maybe less fun. I don't really know if you like to gamble, right?
Actually, I'm not the biggest.
No, me neither.
Besides digital currency on the side, but I'll go to Niagara, for instance, or Montreal with buddies, and I'll watch them play because it's so entertaining.
Right.
Yeah, they used to have the Wheel of Fortune game there. Actually, they took it away because there was ways of winning that.
Oh, really? Yeah. There was people actually breaking the system?
I don't know, but I won money just by doing that game.
Really?
And I'm not a gambler, right?
Yeah.
But it's not like, I'm going to go to Niagara just to go gamble. No, I'm going to make a whole day out of it. Like go to like a Cabana or Copacabana or something like that, right? But I've never been that type of person.
Yeah, for me, like if I were to go to Niagara, I think it's because I don't like big cities. I don't like all, so many people around and feeling like I'm so confined and there's just so much going on all at one time. I like that small town kind of vibe. And I think that's why I kind of vibe a lot better with places that are, small town, more historic, like Savannah and Charleston. I can go and stand on the sidewalk and read a plaque, and that's entertaining to me. I like learning things, right? For me, I'm kind of at a point in my life where if I either am not being efficient, for one, so it's like I'm not getting myself further ahead with what I'm currently doing, or if I'm not learning something, I feel like it's not really worth my time, right? Like here, for example, on the show, I feel like because we interview so many different people and we get, pick people's brains and have interesting conversations, it's worth it because I'm learning something, right? We're learning from each other, and so on and so forth. And for me, it's like I prefer to invest my time rather than waste my time. Obviously, sometimes you do need breaks and you got to have like those little trips with your friends.
It recharges you.
Yeah, exactly. You got to have the fun stuff in between. But I feel like my mind tells me that I really need to earn those moments, right? So usually before I go on like a vacation type of trip, like I just went on with my friends to Alberta and British Columbia.
That one looked awesome, by the way.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. But I felt like I really had to grind, like stock up, bank up on videos because I needed to make it feel like it was worth it. Because I didn't want to have to go and actually, work on any main channel videos. I'll vlog along the way, just something kind of fun. I think the fans would enjoy it, which they did. But I didn't want to feel like I had to work while I was on vacation at the same time, apart from maybe editing and, uploading some videos. So that's just where my mind's at. I'm just always, it has to either be efficient or I need to be learning something because I really generally don't like wasting my time. Even like TV shows. Like if I watch a TV show, it's either going to have some sort of maybe historical context, or maybe based on a true story, or maybe like a medical show where I could feel like I'm actually learning from watching what's happening, and learning what these, even though it's essentially useless in my life, but I still feel like I did something productive. And then obviously once in a while you watch the fun, entertaining stuff, right? Like if you're watching like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or whatever, stuff like that.
Yeah. Actually, let me ask you something. Yeah. Like you said that, you're not a fan of metropolitan areas. You like the low key places on the map and all that. So like, your dream property, would it be like outside the city?
Oh, hell yeah. Right? Yeah. For me, I would like to have maybe like a ranch. I think would be kind of cool, right? I mean, I don't really have, maybe a couple of chickens or whatever.
Just a couple, by the way.
Just a few chickens. Maybe like a cow, get like natural milk, and then maybe eventually turn them into steak dinner. I don't know.
He likes all the fried chicken down there in Savannah, so I don't know how many chickens will be surviving once he gets that property, right?
But for me, like a nice size property, kind of on the outskirts of, maybe it doesn't have to be so far from the city, but it could be on the outskirts of a larger city, but far enough away that I'm not dealing with hearing the traffic. You get that sort of that solitude, right? That quiet, that sometimes when you get that quiet, I find that very refreshing. Whereas it's kind of like a way to unplug. When you're done working at the end of the day, you want to go home and you want that solitude, and you want to be able to hear sometimes nothing. And that's what I like about going into the middle of nowhere. If I go to the desert, I will literally stop in my place and just stand there for a second. Don't move, don't make a sound, and just listen. And all I'm listening to is literally nothing, because here we don't get that.
That's right.
Right. At home, it's, my area is relatively quiet. It's not super, super busy or noisy or anything like that. It's very suburbs, but eventually you'll hear a plane, or you'll hear the train, which is like 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers away from my house, but I could still hear it in my bedroom late at night when you're trying to fall asleep. It's like, I would like to just have that area where I could just stop moving and just hear nothing until the chicken decides it's going to cluck, right? But apart from that, that's what
that'll be his alarm clock every
morning. Exactly.
Up until he decides to eat it.
Yeah, exactly. The rooster, until the neighbor starts complaining, hey, your rooster's a little too noisy, can you do something about that? We've actually had that happen. My friend had his dad had a bunch of chickens, and they kind of live in an area where they're not super close to all the neighbors, but they're close enough. And they used to let the chickens and roosters roam around the property. And they would go like to the neighbor's house early in the morning, because the chickens, the roosters, they were all just wandering around the neighborhood. Yeah. And everybody was just very used to it. But at the end of the day, the chickens and the roosters know where the food's at. So they always end up going home. But one of the neighbors actually complained to them. They're like, listen, I like the fact that you got chickens and roosters, and you supply us with eggs and all this great organic stuff for us, but your fucking rooster is waking me up way too early every morning. Can you please do something about this? So they made a decision and they took care of that rooster.
Oh, yeah. Well, you got to do what you got to do.
Right? I mean, if your neighbor's complaining, it is what it is. But I think the funniest part too about that was that they used to feed the chicken mostly like, because chickens, you can just kind of like keep your leftovers, like old greens and whatever, and they'll eat all that stuff, right? So what they used to do was they used to keep all their leftover stuff. Like, when you peel a head of lettuce, for example, you can keep all that lettuce and just throw it in a bucket and then feed it to all the chickens. What they used to do was they would put it in a KFC bucket, and they'd bring the KFC.
Oh my God.
I have a picture in my phone somewhere. It's a really, really old picture.
That I have to see.
And it's just because they knew that when the KFC bucket is coming, that's their food. So I have a picture. There's
Little
a KFC.
did they know.
Yeah, there's a KFC bucket, and there's just like 10 chickens all trying to come towards this bucket because they know it's dinner time. And it's just like, oh my God, just the irony of a KFC
picture
bucket.
Of chickens eating out of a KFC bucket. Oh man.
It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. But
that is really funny.
Yeah, for me, I'd rather live out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. Live in the woods or something like that. That would be pretty cool.
Nice. Like a bunch of acres of land, like a pool or...
Yeah, something like that. Maybe somewhere in Florida, close to the beach or something. Eventually, I'd like to own a couple of different, kind of vacation properties, especially because I bounce around so much. Like I like going to Arizona once in a while, like go to Florida, Texas. It would be really awesome to own like multiple properties around there. Maybe either use them as Airbnbs or maybe, you know, use them as my own
hubs pretty much.
Exactly, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to go to Arizona this weekend, fly in for 2-3 days, and I know I have a place to stay. So I don't have to spend the money on an Airbnb or hotel or whatever it is. Plus, it's, you know, it's obviously an investment, but
yeah, I know Florida's booming as far as real estate is right now. That's for
100%. Right. But the crazy part about that is that Florida real estate, so when you compare Florida real estate to Toronto or anywhere here in the metropolitan area of the Greater Toronto area, the money that you can spend in Florida is incredible for what you're getting. And I think a lot of people are not really understanding that. So for example, I remember finding I think I showed it to you. Remember I found some real estate listings of some properties.
Oh yeah.
And these were like beautiful homes, like 2,500 square feet. You know, you had your own pool, you're in a gated community, and you're literally right across from the beach. I think it was in Melbourne, Florida. 1.2 million US. So that's roughly about what, 1.5 million Canadian. In Canada, in Toronto, what are you buying for 1.5 million?
I'll tell you right now, probably like a generic Woodbridge or Bolton property.
Right.
Just like a 2-story. Like, I'm not disrespecting those people that live there, but it's something like that. That's what it is. Toronto is nuts right now.
Or like a 1-floor condo.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, 1 or 2 bedrooms max.
Yeah,
exactly.
like Park Lawn and Lakeshore, for example, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, the real estate in comparison is like, it's not like far off to what we have over here, but it's like, if you like good weather more or less all year round, except for hurricanes, obviously, and, you know, sometimes tornadoes in the ocean. If you like being able to go to the beach because it's literally steps away from your house, like that's ideal, right? In Toronto, it's like you get 3 decent months out of the year. Like right now, the weather here, it's summertime, and the weather's been kind of on and off, right? Yesterday was it was nice during the day, and then all of a sudden the storm came out of nowhere, right? It was, I mean, they said that it was coming, but still, it was just like, it switches on a dime, right? You go to, like, Alberta would be a nice place to live during the summer, right? Except for like when I was there, all of a sudden you had a tornado, you had a crazy hailstorm, and it was just wild.
And then the fires.
Right.
Their real estate isn't that great out there either. Actually, I knew a couple of people that went there and bought. Great area, but they decided just wasn't for them around that area to pursue whatever their careers are, their life dreams are, and then they moved somewhere else and they lost money from selling. So it really depends on the market that you pick, right?
Yeah.
Toronto being, it's a blessing for people that already have equity in their homes, right? But I must say, it is difficult for people right now trying to get into it. You're probably going to need double income.
Yeah.
Like dual
minimum
household income, right? Or you just got to do what we do. You got to have multiple sources of avenues of income streams coming through. What else can we say, right?
But even still, it's like, it's still challenging because of the way our markets, like, or the way our mortgage system works. Like, you got to have such a large down payment that it's like by the time you hit that first goal, then all of a sudden they change the number again. It's like, oh, now you need 25% down. It's like, well, I just worked my butt off to save the 20%. And not only that, but in the meanwhile, the house values all went up. So it's like now what used to be my down payment is not enough, right? So it's always such a huge challenge, which, yeah, you really got to like kind of look around at what the options are and see where the best option lies. But
and that goes back to my mission as to what I do, is just building that blueprint to get to where we need to go for people. Like I think it was about 4 months ago, I helped a guy, he was 18 years old, help him retire at 45 years old. He thought it was far-fetched. He went to multiple banks and those guys laughed at him from his words, and I showed him how to do it. So there's a way.
There's a magic number, right?
Right? It's like you are going to go to a doctor that has a license to back up his credibility, but we're going through like Reddit on people we don't even know. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you got to have a credible source that's going to show you how to get there. Yeah, you see the end result, but what's that actual blueprint that's going to get you there? It comes back to that. There is a way. It's just, you just got to get that growth mindset.
Yeah. It's like we said, there's a magic number when it comes to stuff like that. And I feel like that's another issue with young people. And I know we probably did the same thing when we were younger. We blew a lot of the money that we made, when in reality, there was so much that you could do by simply saving $50 a week, $100 a week. And it's so simple, right? And you could literally, like you said, retire by 45, 55, whatever it is, whatever your goal is that you want to accomplish. But just people are not willing to make the sacrifices, right? Oh, well, I got to go with my friends to the club and basically blow everything that I earned that week in one night, right? Where it's like, well, why didn't you just, tell your friends, hey, I don't want to, go waste all my money. Why don't we just chill at home? We'll buy a case of beer. It'll cost us 1/10 of what we're going to blow in a club, right? By acting cool and spending $100 on a bottle, right? In our little booth area. Instead, you could have hung out at home, also had a great time, right? And saved a lot of money in the process. But I find a lot of young people are not willing to make that sacrifice because they got to have those good times, right?
Yeah. And you know what? We're not saying you don't have to go out all the time, but if you gotta like compromise a little bit to get to where you need to go. Like your friends, whatever their lifestyle is or how they grew up, you can't compare that. That's a trigger that I've noticed people. They do that constant comparison. It's never going to end. When is it going to end? It won't, unless you take yourself out of the equation. Just focus on what you need to do. And you're right. There are times when I've gone out. I enjoyed it. The college days were fantastic. It was $10 pitchers at Blueberry Hill at Seneca, York. It was great. But like, those are memories. And then there is other types of income that you just got to diversify. Yeah. So you can't go out all the time. Just chill. Have that personal time to yourself, whether it's reading a book or audiobooks, or you've mentioned something a lot in this podcast. What is my ROI without even saying it, right? What is my return on investment getting from all this content that you're doing, right? It's just, you got to keep constantly learning rather than being stagnant. Like you mentioned earlier, we're always afraid of being stagnant. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. That's definitely part of life, right? You just definitely don't want to, for me, I hate not doing things. Like I feel like it's become a little bit of a problem, whereas like you get to the point where it's like you can't even chill anymore, where you're constantly moving, you're constantly always finding something to do, because I just don't, like I said, I don't like to waste my time I feel needs to be invested wisely. But yeah, what are some, so you do a lot of so on TikTok you're doing a lot of these sort of little talks, right? Like your little mini TED Talks. What are some of the things that you're really focused on learning when it comes to mindset? Like what are things that you're currently learning that you're trying to apply in your work life, business life, personal life? What are those?
Can you shout out your TikTok user?
Yeah, it's
Alessandro
Canzian AMC.
Is that it?
That's Instagram, and that's also TikTok as well. Actually, my actual name is Alessandro, but a lot of people butcher it, or they sing the Lady Gaga song, so I say Alex is sufficient. Yeah. Right? But yeah, you can find me on that. When I was at the bank, and I'm sure everyone has experienced this, when we had meetings or huddles, it was always about the numbers. I get it. The numbers are important, but it's always about the numbers. It's like a university professor considering you as being a number, and no one wants to feel like that. So when I got into the finance world of the brokerage, they had dedicated, to this day, every Wednesday for 2 hours, mental toughness training. Wow. And that was revolutionary. That's the main reason why I jumped into it. Yeah, I had a plan, which happens to be from the same brokerage, so I have that for myself. But what made me join that firm was those mental toughness trainings, and that's all they're talking about. They're not talking about numbers. That's another day. That's cool, right? Everyone has their own pace, whatever. There's no pressure in doing that. Now, every Wednesday meeting, they start with good news for the first 15 minutes. And this may sound cliche, but it'd be like a person where, oh my God, I didn't do business for 4 months, but actually some random person Facebook messaged me and talked to me about my services. They moved investments over from their bank, and all of a sudden it was a nice little commission that they made, but the commission was relevant to that customer, what they wanted to do for the future. So it was just stories like that. When people lose the fire, lose the motivation, they come back and hearing other people's stories, right? And that just shows that the company doesn't want to leave anyone behind. So going back to these YouTube shorts, which by the way, I'm making YouTube shorts. Okay. It's Canadian hybrid, because
that's what I was going to say. Your TikTok is Canadian hybrid.
Yeah. So I think I got confused with
Canadian
Instagram.
Hybrid.
Yeah.
CDN hybrid, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yep.
Obviously, Italian and Aboriginal. I kind of had to think of something on the fly that was catchy, but mental toughness is something that I really love talking about. Obviously, finances, but I have noticed through like the news, it's always fear mongering. It's conflict, nonstop conflict. I couldn't tell you how many times I've gone to the gym at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. I play a game where I'm like, okay, how many good news topics are actually being talked about? And there's usually like one or two out of 25 or 26. I'm not saying things are not crazy out there, but are you telling me you can't find other good stuff to talk about? So we talked about this in mental toughness training at our brokerage, is hope. We got to bring hope back to people. We got to get people to stop self-sabotaging their goals and trying to like get to that discipline stage when motivation expires, kind of like what we were talking about earlier.
Be very self-sufficient.
Right? Tim Grover, I don't know if you guys have heard of him. He's the mentor to Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant's success. And he always said, obsession. They were not passionate. They were obsessed. And that just hits volumes to me. You got to have that obsession to just keep on going, right? Like, what is it going to take to quit on your life goals and dreams? That question, I say that to myself out loud sometimes when I feel like it's one of those days where, oh, shoot, you know what? It was out of my control. Did I do everything possible to get to the next stage? And you just have to really brainstorm it. Take away the emotions. Got to put logic into place and just keep going. And I think I've had so many people all over the course of all the jobs I worked at. It's every morning, the traffic was bad. Oh, this is what's going on in the news. Someone passed away. Look at this area, so bad. What's going on in Canada? What's going on in the US? And you just got to like take away all that BS and just get your mind in a specific state. And I will say this, getting the license to do what I do now, it's called the LOQP. I'm sure you guys know that, right? It's similar to the mutual funds license.
I think that's what we both had.
Yeah,
right?
it's called the LOQP.
Life License Qualification Program or whatever, right? Yeah, we had
I
that too.
fell in love with audiobooks from that point because that's what made me pass and get my licensing in the first place. And I'm nonstop listening to audiobooks on the road. I think I don't know how many I've listened to, maybe like 15 of them. I'm listening to one called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, and he's like a Navy SEAL guy talking about ownership and all that. Oh, it's so good. But you got to keep that mind in focused, ready to go, but also make sure that your self-belief system is indestructible. It's bulletproof, no matter what haters you're going to have, like YouTube, for instance. I've had haters. We all have had haters, but that should keep you going because you're doing something right. People are always going to be jealous of your success, whether you know them or not, and just propel. There's going to be keyboard warriors every day. I always laugh at it, and you just got to keep going. So I'm kind of trying to bring hope and trying to not get rid of conflict, but minimize it as much as possible. Yeah. Right. But it goes down to your circle too. And I will say this, not my parents specifically, but I do notice some parents are dream killers for their kids, where they think that's not the way to go, right? And I get it.
A lot of them are so used to very traditional jobs, ways of life, things like that, where they don't really understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish and that you're able to do something different, right? So like trying to explain to my 88-year-old grandmother that I do YouTube, right? And she thinks it's a job, right? Which it kind of is, but I work for myself. Nobody tells me what to do. So it's my own business. I'm essentially self-employed, right? But so when she asks me, she's like, "Oh, how's your job?" Right? And I'm just like, "It's good, Nonna. Like everything's good." Because it's too complicated to explain to her that. And I've tried explaining it, like I make videos, I put them on the internet, and YouTube pays me, right? But they're just, you can see that just it's not clicking for them because they don't understand, because they're stuck in that old traditional mindset of going out and getting a quote unquote normal job, which not by any means is my job anywhere near normal, But yeah, they're stuck in that old way. Like even my mom, like sometimes she doesn't get it. Like when I'm trying to do certain things, like when I was getting this place and I'm explaining like, you know, what the rent expense is and the amount of money that I'm going to have to spend to be able to get this place up and running, to make it, you know, look the way it is, to make it operational, make it comfortable for us and our guests. And it's like, it's an investment, right? Whether this podcast, which right now, to be honest with you guys, is not making us any money. And I'm not looking for sympathy or anything like that, but that's just where we're at. I've invested this amount of money and eventually it might turn into something. But right now it's just something that it was a project, right? And I understood that from a business perspective, you have to sometimes take the leap and try to do things. And it may not eventually work out in the long run. I've done tons of businesses that didn't work out. But where I'm at now, you know, after working my butt off and having a certain goal, I finally achieved those goals, and I kind of wanted to expand on that a little bit, and that's why I kind of did this.
It's like, what's next?
Yeah, right? Exactly. And my mom didn't really like understand. She's like, oh, you're spending all this money, and it's like, Mom, who cares? It's a business expense, right? Like at the end of the day, I write it off, right? Whether this makes $100 or $100,000, at the end of the day, if there's an expense, I write it off, right? If I happen to make money, I make money, right? That's how business works. But they won't understand it because they've never done anything like this themselves. I mean, the opportunity to do YouTube didn't exist when they were younger, right? The opportunity to work on maybe social media, to
definitely did not exist.
Crypto investing, it was non-existent, right? Back in the day, if you wanted to invest in the stock market, you had to call a broker and he had to physically, you know, get somebody to submit the ticket on the floor in the stock exchange or whatever. Now you could literally download programs and do it from your phone, right? If you want to buy an Apple stock tomorrow, all you got to do is go into this program like Wealth Simple, for example, and click a button and you've instantly bought 100 shares of Apple. Like
automation is amazing, it's another level right now. Yeah,
it's amazing. I mean, obviously we are going to probably run into some issues with AI and automation type of stuff. Like at grocery stores, I know that they've recently started running into issues with theft at these automated self-checkout counters, but those types of issues are going to come around, and then eventually as human beings we will solve them. We'll figure out ways of getting around them, right? Like for example, in California, do you know what they're doing now in California? This is wild.
What?
So I think it's in San Francisco, when you go into a store, not every place has this, but some places have them.
I think I know where you're going with this, but yeah.
You have to look up at a computer and show your face because it has facial recognition, and then they'll allow you into the store. And the reason why they do that is because theft is so rampant in San Francisco that they had to do that.
Wow.
So that way they could, you know, have a recording and recognize who everyone is that's coming in and out of the store. It's unfortunate that they had to go through those types of precautions.
Of all places, San Francisco?
Well, they changed the laws, right? So
Yeah.
they decriminalized crime essentially because now you can steal up to $1,000.
I thought that's what you were going to say.
They can't do any. The cops can't do anything about it. The business owners can't do anything about it, which is just, to me, is lunacy, right? Like that's one reason. Like I don't really want to go there. I would never live in a place like that. It's just not for me. If you guys want to deal with it, by all means, that's up to you, right? I know for some people, obviously they're stuck in situations where they're in these crappy city centers where it's not like they can just pick up and move. And I understand that. I totally get that for people who are in those positions. However, if you do set it as a goal, figure out a way, go outside the box to find a way to actually do that. Let the opportunities open up and find something
outside your comfort zone.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that can give you the opportunity to do that, right? Like for me, eventually I would like to move to the US and live there permanently. But somewhere obviously that I really want to, right? And I'm constantly thinking of ways of how can I make this happen, because I have to hit certain goals in order for that to happen for myself, right? But yeah, that's just the way it is, right? But yeah, San Francisco is like,
I think everyone's moving out of California last couple of years.
Yeah,
to like Texas and Florida with everything going on there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's cheaper to live. You can live with a little bit more peace of mind, a little bit more freedom. Crime is significant. Not that, you know, every city in Texas or Florida is perfect by any means, but there are areas that you can move. Even in California, there are certain areas you can move into that are, you know, much safer, things like that, a little bit more conservative areas, if you will. And Florida and Texas do have their setbacks in certain areas. Every place generally has pros and cons, right? I mean, we went to Japan. We thought it was an amazing country,
I've heard nothing
place.
but good things.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of good things, but there's also some things that are not so good,
Yep.
right? People who live there generally have to work to the point where it's bad, right? Like you're just endlessly working. You're essentially working to live, which is not a life. You should not have to live like that, right? Just to make ends meet. And that's slowly kind of happening here too now, because we're starting to enter a very hyper socialized society, where now we're experiencing very high inflation because we've had a lot of money spending, because a lot of people who didn't want to work wanted to stay home and get paid to do nothing. Well, when you don't create anything, the value of everything goes down and the cost of everything eventually goes up, right? It's just basic economics, supply and demand. If there's high demand for things but nobody's creating anything, then the price of a specific product might go up, right? So it's like if you have 15 people who want cars, but there's only 10 cars. So the value is now people got to fight over it, and there's going to be 5 people who are going to be left without a car, right?
And being in the car business is still happening.
Exactly. And it's happening more and more, because now you're having, shortages of certain parts. There was a chip shortage a while ago.
Yeah. Still happening.
It has not ended, yeah.
No, and I do know there was a large problem when things first started to open up after COVID. And I know this happened with rental car companies, because the rental car companies got rid of their entire fleets because nobody was renting cars. So they said, well, there's no point in having all these cars sitting here seizing up on our lot. And plus, they also want brand new cars for their customers. All of a sudden, everything opened up at a very quick rate of speed, that all the rental car companies had to now order new fleets of vehicles, and supply and demand. All of a sudden, the supply was diminished because a lot of these car manufacturers had slowed down during COVID, and then all of a sudden the demand just went poof, right? And then it was like, okay, well, we got to start slowly turning everything back on, and eventually catch up, and hope that the markets kind of balance out in that respect, right? But it takes a long time, right? When you shut everything down for a couple of years, it's going to take some time to get back up and running. It's like these old oil rigs, right? People don't realize why the oil prices had gone up so drastically was because a lot of these oil companies, they shut down their systems. So you shut down an old oil rig, it's not as simple as just turning it back on, right? Pulling the pull cord and then all of a sudden the thing's running again. It doesn't work that way. Parts seize. Sometimes you got to completely destroy the entire structure and then completely rebuild it in order to continue, either whether you're mining or whether you're fracking for oil or whether, things like that. It takes a long time to rebuild an entire structure or system like that. So,
yeah.
And that's why we ran into a lot of issues.
I want to ask something.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember when the blackout happened in 2003?
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, what were you guys doing around that time when it happened?
I was at my cousin's house. They didn't live too far from me. I used to ride my bike over to their place all the time and just spend the day or whatever. What the heck were we doing that day? I think we were just hanging out at their house, and then all of a sudden, the power goes out, and we were waiting, and it just wasn't coming back on. And I remember my aunt was trying to make chicken cutlets, and she had already made them. So the problem was that the stove upstairs was electric, obviously no electricity. So she had to go into the basement to use the gas stove, but the problem was no light, so she couldn't see what she was doing. So my uncle finally comes back home and he's like, yes, I finally have a reason to use the damn gas generator that I bought. So
nice.
He hooked up the gas generator and then hooked up the big, because he was a construction guy, so he had the big spotlight things that you can like move like this. And so she's just, in the kitchen with these stupid spotlights, and all you hear is the gas generator for like an hour and a half. And then for some reason they decided we were just going to eat in the basement, which I couldn't figure out why we even did that, but that's just that was normal, right? To eat in the basement. And then what was it, like a day, 2 days later, the power finally came back?
I think it was longer.
I feel like it was less than a week.
Yeah.
Something like that.
A couple days or less than a week, something like that. Yeah. The only reason why I brought that up because you were talking about the grid, how long it takes to get everything going, right?
That was because of a fire, I think, right? There was a fire.
I don't even remember what it was.
I think it was at the Niagara plant or something like that.
Maybe.
There was a major fire, and they had to shut down the whole plant, which essentially made like 10, 15 minutes. Basically, all of Ontario was out of. There was no power whatsoever. That was crazy, man.
All Eastern Seaboard. Actually.
That's wild.
Do you remember where you were at?
I was just gonna ask you that. Yeah, I think we were with family. I think we were visiting my cousins, but in Ottawa, something like that, or with my grandma out there, or something like that. I don't remember the details. What were you doing?
Oh boy. So the reason why I brought that up, going to a whole power outage there, I was 4 months into the grocery store job. I started in March 2003, and it was August 2003 when that happened. There was a huge heat wave that year. Like, there were so many deaths in Europe for how bad that heat wave was. That year was unique. It was the West Nile virus and SARS in that same year. That day, it was so hot, wearing like a huge uniform. There was no like t-shirts, plus an apron. And I was doing like buggies and propane tanks for selling left, right, and center. But that was like one of the longest days of
because I
like,
think everybody
working.
was barbecuing at that point,
right?
Yeah. Fortunately, like you were talking about how your family adapted, you know, like decided to eat in the basement and all that. I was fortunate enough to live on a dead end street, and we all had like it was like a little mini gathering of people's barbecues and food and all that. But that year was very interesting. I tell you, when that happened, because that was like a long day. I felt like that day never ended. It was just like, oh shoot, this is only a part-time job. I hated every minute of it, but hey, the show must go on, right? We gotta roll with the punches when stuff is out of our control, right? Yeah. But that was a very, very unique time, I must say.
I wonder how, if the power went out for like a month, what people would do nowadays. Like that was 2003.
Yep. 20 years.
And that was a long time ago, and I feel like a lot of people had a really hard time dealing with it then. Now that we rely so much more on, technology and like how are people going to charge their Teslas, right? So things like that.
Cell phones.
Yeah, I mean, even like the gas pumps didn't work either because they need some form of like, if I recall correctly, there was a lot of like gas pumps that couldn't operate because they run on electronic.
Really?
Like you couldn't pay for it, right? All the ATMs were pretty much closed for 2-3 days that it occurred. So I think it would be really crazy if like imagine we were to get, like I've heard this many times, but imagine we were to get hit by like a solar flare or something and just everything just was fried.
Like a massive EMP.
Right? A massive EMP that would just literally decimate every electrical infrastructure in existence, right? It would be like, do you remember War of the Worlds, the movie with Tom Cruise? And I think there was an older one way back in the day too. Something like that, right? Where the only vehicle that works is like old carbureted vehicle, things like that, which unfortunately I do know some people, so I could probably get my hands on one pretty easily. But people wouldn't be able to drive. You wouldn't have AC or heat. You would it would be like the freaking Stone Age, man. And they do say that if you look at statistics, like people who have kind of studied that area of like a subject, a lot of people would die because people would not know how to fend for themselves. So
there'd be like riots or something, right?
I mean, even past the riots, people would not be able, people would literally starve to death, right? Because we're so used to here in Western society, and I feel like a lot of us take it for granted because we never bother to actually learn how to do things if something like this were to happen, like how to hunt, how to grow your own garden, things like that, right? All of our food is supplied through grocery stores. Well, imagine all the grocery stores were done because of a situation like this. What would you do, right? You'd have to grab a gun and head to the forest and start hunting deer, right? Or if you're fortunate enough and you had some chickens, you could survive on the eggs from your own chickens, but then you'd have to defend your chickens because then people now are going to get desperate and they're going to try and steal your chickens because they want your chicken eggs, right? So it's a very tough thing, right? And that's kind of why it would be like nice to live kind of off grid, so to say, get out of the large cities and learn how to do things for your own, learn how to farm, learn how to ranch, and, you know, take care of your animals and whatever, have some pigs, cows, and chickens and whatever, and you're pretty much self-sufficient at that point. So I think that would be hugely beneficial to a lot of people to learn, at least learn how to do it, right? Take the time to know how to do things like that.
Yeah, you know what? There are certain skill sets, if you come to think of it, that it should be mandatory when you get older.
Yeah.
Right? Like, for instance, when something like that happens, you got to have a contingency plan. You got to have several moves ahead in advance, so you're not just all of a sudden procrastinating but panicking and not being reactive when you're supposed to be proactive, right? Or, you know, me swimming for so many years, CPR is something that everyone should learn, in my opinion, right? Finances, learning credit, investment courses, mental toughness, that when your back's against the wall, how do I get myself to keep going? Like, all of that would be so great, because I think that every teenager needs to learn that, right? And you know what? You could be the smartest person in the world. You're going to have a nice little certificate, bachelor's degree, whatever, but you got to make sure you have ethics. You got to make sure you're compliant. You got to make sure you have integrity. You got to make sure that you're going to take care of your colleagues. If you are going to have your own business, you got to make sure that you are impressionable and you have credibility. So these are things that are not really talked about enough, right? You can bomb an interview and you may all have all the skill sets on a piece of paper, but they're not going to hire you if you have attitude, right? Or no, you know, don't put too much enthusiasm, but at least put some grit as to what your purpose is, you know? So yeah, I agree. You got to have those skill sets, right?
100%. You got to refine your skills, so to say, right? Get better at improve your typing speed, right? That was such a like an important thing back in the day, right?
Oh, mine sucks
Your
so
words
bad.
per minute type of thing. I mean, I'm pretty decent. I can like look without. I usually like look at the screen while I'm typing, so I can type decent speed. But yeah, always look to improve, right? What are some other things that you like kind of focus on? You do a lot of like health and wellness type of stuff, right? So do you have like a specific diet that you go through?
Well, you know what?
Exercise regimen?
Funny you mentioned that. Let's talk about diet. I think diet, that word to me is like motivation. A diet expires, right? So I'm a huge UFC MMA guy. I watch it all the time, and the one thing they don't like is the weight cut. Yeah. Right. So they're basically weight cutting and then they gain it all back. But in the end, I wonder if that's even healthy, because you're like, some of these guys are like,
well, based on the amount of like the rate that they're doing it at is definitely not healthy. Yeah, because they're essentially like starving themselves pretty much, and then, you know, they're in the sauna and then they're working out, but while not taking in any calories whatsoever.
But isn't that whole thing? Doesn't that usually, that process, isn't it usually a day or two just before the weigh-in?
That's when they're like really close
to the very end of it. They're in the sauna suit and all that. Yeah.
It could get dangerous too. I imagine. I know a lot of people have. If you listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, they've mentioned it before, how dangerous stuff like that could be, because you're starving yourself and you're putting yourself through this regimen that's just so difficult for your body. Your body is not designed to handle something like that. Your body is designed to, you know, have a normal calorie intake and whatever.
Yeah. It's not just that, it's also bodybuilding too. They got to cut to make sure they get the specific lighting on posing and all they do and all that. But like, I respect all fighters doing the weight cut, but it would just be as easy as you just train every year. Not going too crazy, but just moderate. So then you're within that weight class of you fighting, and you don't have to worry about health ramifications down the road. That's the way I would look at it. But then again, I'm not a fighter, right? But I look at everything as a lifestyle. You just said it earlier about your grandmother saying it's a job, but to you, it's not. It's more than that. This is the vision. This is your mission. This is what you want to do. You want to service those people that are watching you, you know, or reading about you, and you want to leave that legacy behind, right? Like, I heard this probably so many months ago. I don't know what podcast I heard it from, or maybe it was an audiobook. It's like, what does your last name mean to you? And that just like hits me. It's like, what are you leaving behind? And I think it all comes down to is that belief system. You can't, the diet's going to go. Once that diet goes, then what's going to happen then? Then you're stagnant. Yeah. And then you got to refresh the whole thing over again. I'd rather just be consistent, and then you're just going to get better and better and better. Like YouTube, I'm sure when you first started, like, you guys, you weren't the experts right off the get-go. You just had to learn the logistics. You had to learn the audience. You had to learn teaser trailers to lure them in and create attention. Like, this is all just a learning process. But in the end, you're going to gain credibility. You're going to gain followers. You're going to get more traction just by keep going and going and going. Being adaptable. Isn't that funny? I keep saying that, but it's so true. You got to beat your competitors, right? But find your own way in doing it, right? There's no one way. There's always several avenues of how to get there, right? But I mean, let's talk about health for a second. This actually leans in to the finance world. When I was 29 in 2016, I bought my own place a year before. It was my first place. My goal was to buy my own property before I was 30 years old. I did it at 29, so it was awesome, right? Nice. And then around January of 2016, I got this bad migraine when I was at the gym. And maybe because I was lifting too heavy, I was doing deadlifts that day or something. I was lifting too heavy and I felt like, my God, I feel like dehydrated. I got to just chill. So I just sat down in the change room, and for some reason, it's like someone took a needle and took a lot of blood out of me. And I was like, just holding myself together like this, like I couldn't even breathe. The migraine was so bad. So I actually had to drive home. 5 minutes away felt like half hour just to drive home. Lie down. I was still at the bank at that time. I never missed a day of work. I was never late, always on time. I actually had to call it and say I have a migraine. The only way to sleep that off, guys, I don't know about you, is to sleep. That's the only way. Slept, wake up, I still feel like it's happening. My vision is off.
So you knew something was wrong.
Something was off. Yeah. And the only thing that helped was pre-workout that I used to go to the gym. Oh, okay. It was like a sugar rush or a caffeine rush that made me feel good. But then again, it's going to wear off. Yeah. Still, the pain was excruciating. I was like, this is not... I've only had one migraine in 10 years prior to that day. Something was off. Anyways, I go to the clinic. They say, you know what, maybe you're stressed at work, or maybe you need some Advil. And I'm like, okay, fine. Still didn't take that advice seriously. Something was definitely off. I started throwing up when I got home. Now it just seems really serious. So gut feeling, guys, I will say this, at least it's for my story, ongoing, saved me. I went to the emergency at Credit Valley, which is in Mississauga, drove there, 12-hour wait in the emergency room. Like some people just wait in there for the most ridiculous things ever when they could just go to the clinic, for goodness sakes. But anyways, that's the uncomfortable suffering stage that we always talk about. And they found a brain aneurysm in my head. Wow. I just can't believe 29. That's unbelievable. It was genetics on my mom's side of the family. They've had some people that obviously just on the spot, popped dead. Thankfully, they caught it. They take the ambulance. They bring me all the way to Trillium, which apparently are one of the best in Toronto. They're the experts. They say, Alex, there's one of two things we can do. One, we take it out, but there's a chances of stroke that are extremely high. I said, okay, what's the second one? I'm already going to think the second one by now, right? And they're like, they're going to put a metal coil around the aneurysm so it holds it together. The success rate is like 90%. And I'm like, well, I'm definitely picking that one. Yeah. So we do it. When looking back, I mean, I handled it so well. I was doing push-ups 2 days after surgery in the hospital, right? And I could not sleep in the hospital. Guys, please. It's impossible to sleep in the hospital. It's so loud. You're talking about like GO trains from like 10 kilometers away or planes. Yeah, exactly. It was nonstop shouting the whole time, right? But, you know, survived. I'm here. I'm meant to be here. That kept me going. And the big reason why I got into finances is that thankfully the bank had short-term disability, as most places do, short-term, long-term. Short-term being 100% of your salary, but 3 months passes by, it's 60%. So getting your first place, your own mortgage property, the first year is tough. You know, you're taking, responsibility, self-reliance. You're buying your own food. You're hitting property taxes. You're hitting all this kind of stuff. And it's like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? So I had to rush getting out of short-term disability and recovery faster than I had to because I had no choice. But what's crazy is the brain aneurysm, even though it happened, the bank didn't have coverage for my head. OHIP covered surgery. I want to make that clear. Yeah. But every corporation out there should have basic critical illness coverage, which is called, you get coverage for cancer, loss of sight or limb, or heart attack or stroke. Brain aneurysm wasn't part of that package.
So for the actual short-term disability
short-term
policy?
was covered.
Okay.
But there's also critical illness.
Right.
So let me give you an example. Let's say I had a financial guy say, Alex, you know what? You need critical illness because you had, cancer, which runs in my family too. Cancer and brain aneurysm runs in the family, high cholesterol. We should get these critical illnesses. People what don't know is that life insurance is basically when you pass away, you get the coverage for your beneficiaries. Critical illness is the opposite of that. You survive, you get a lump sum of money. So let's say I had $100,000 coverage. Short-term disability covers me for the first 3 months, but then I also get $100,000 as a lump sum of money right then and there, so then I don't have to worry about my recovery for the next year or two.
So that's saying, okay, hey, I can't work. This is the point. I can't work.
If I choose not to work, but I can still get the lump sum regardless.
Yeah,
but,
I guess
so somebody has to say, hey, you're not going to be able to work and return within maybe a year or two, or how does it
Not necessarily. So maybe I give a better example. Let's say I'm helping out a client and he's an engineer making $150,000 a year. The proper thing to do is when I'm looking at his plan, we all like talking about savings and investments, but if he does, God forbid, have a critical illness in the future, I can create a plan that covers up to 25 critical illnesses. Mine was just 4. Now, obviously, learning the hard way, I want to give a foundation to all the families I want to help. I'll give 25 critical illnesses, the maximum. And it's not that much as people think it is. 150,000 I'll put as coverage, or 200,000. So if he happens to take a year off, he has 150,000 as a lump sum, as a check. You have other places out there, I won't say, they'll put critical illness of 25,000. Don't get me wrong, that's good. But that's a fraction of his salary. So there has to be relevance to why you're creating that blueprint. Now, I'm here. I had tax-free savings account that helped me along the way. Cool. I had to find a secondary or third job to keep going, but it would have been nice to having that.
Yeah.
I'm not putting any fault on anyone, but there is something out there that's not widely talked about.
I guess it depends on what your situation is, right? I mean, a lot of times you get long-term disability would cover you if you have it, right? So that would
but that's a course over month after month after month. You get a lump sum, that's great, right? And something else to let you guys know about, because that's my why I do this today, is to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else, right? Is that what if someone says, Alex, what if there's no critical, what if I never needed critical illness? What happens then? Did I waste my money?
Well, you didn't have to go through the issue of dealing with it.
And that's a good valid point.
Yeah.
Because us being a brokerage, we deal with 30 carriers. There's something called return of premium that you get all the money back at age 75 if nothing happens. So it's like an inheritance that is not going into your RSP, contribution bracket. It's something else entirely, right? So that's a win-win no matter what.
Yeah.
So that's huge.
Yeah.
On top of that, what was I going to say is, that's basically what I do is why I help families to make sure that the bottom is covered. If you guys have 200,000 in investments, right? Well, if you don't have coverage, you're taking all that money out, kind of like what I had to do. Take money out of my tax-free savings account to get by. You have that coverage at the bottom, that you're not ruining your financial house.
Right.
Your whole thing is protected. So that's what we try to teach, right? And I have turned down clients where they say, I don't believe in it. And that's fine. I'm not going to force anything upon you, whether you guys don't see the value or not. I said, then I think it's best that that you think about it. But while you're thinking about it, make sure that you are taking care of your family. Because in the end, when that person passes away, God forbid, we're all going to pass away someday, unless immortality is somewhat invented. The last thing I want to see is a GoFundMe account. I have nothing against GoFundMe accounts, but you're getting money from strangers, but you put your arrogance instead of taking care of your family, right? And then once again, when we went back to what we said earlier, what does your last name mean to you? Oh yeah, he passed away, but you know what? He didn't really take care of this family. What happened? Imagine having people know of you and thinking that, oh my God, this guy passed away, but there's a GoFundMe account for his family because he didn't put coverage in place, that would kill me, right? And I know firsthand how that felt like, right? But yeah, that's the main reason I got into finances, but this mindset as well. And I'm just going to keep on going to make sure everyone's going to be properly taken care of.
Yeah.
Hard to summarize, but I had to really get to the roots of that, right?
And of course, everybody has a disclaimer. Make sure you speak to your financial advisor. We are not giving you financial advice. We are just talking in generalizations, of course. You know,
for the record, you may,
ideas.
you know what? You may already have a great plan. You know what?
Yeah, of course.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we want to make sure, but
just make sure there is a plan, right? So, I mean, God forbid, you didn't have a plan and there was an accident, and you know things can happen at any time. I've lost a lot of family members just out of the blue. Just crazy things happen sometimes, right? So you kind of want to plan ahead. It's kind of like, you know, getting car insurance. You don't want to pay for it, but you have it in the event that you end up getting into a car accident or somebody, you know, hits your car, and you know, at least you're taken care of in that respect, right?
Isn't that funny though? Like, car insurance is something we all need to have.
Yeah.
But people just don't really care about
and
the financial protection.
Yeah.
When that's just as important.
People will spend more money to insure a piece of metal than their own body and flesh, right? So that's just a crazy thing to think about. But yeah, apart from that, so health-wise, obviously you focus a lot on stuff, especially after having an incident like that, which is just it's insane to think that something like that could happen, because no one would ever imagine having an aneurysm and having to have such a major surgery and recovery and all that stuff, especially at the age of 29. Like, you think things like aneurysms and heart attacks are like old people things, right? Like, you know, 50s, 60s, 70s type of situation. And it's crazy how something like that, I mean, it's totally, it can just happen to anyone, realistically. Like you said, it was hereditary? Is that what
it was on my mom's side of the family, and a lot of people, I know at least one or two people that had it, and one of them passed away instantly.
Oh wow! Yeah,
that was heartbreaking.
It's what, like an artery in the brain that's
a blood vessel,
right?
that just pops,
right?
And then that's part of the brain, which is essential for all functionality, but it just shuts down everything.
I think it can start as a slow tear, and then they do what's called a clip. I think they call it.
It's a coil clip, that's what I have. So it's like a metal thing I have in there.
Well, they call it, from what I've heard, it's called an aneurysm clip, right? So they put that, and they just basically stop it from tearing any further, and just hope that does the trick, right?
And I want to make this clear as well that I'm a gym rat, still am. I work out all the time. I eat healthy. I'm always in a calorie deficit. Majority of the time, I like my pizza and pasta. I'm not going to lie. I play volleyball. You know, we do hiking. All of that, it was fine. So it definitely caught me off guard as well. So if someone's, I hate to say it, is obese, not being, you know, active and all that, the chances of getting stuff is higher, right? That's just all comes down to it. So you can only control what you can control, but make sure you have that secondary outlets to make sure that your mind is at ease, like reading or audiobooks or whatever your niche is, to keep going, right? So I find that very critical. And to this day, I still get checked every year to make sure the coil's intact. And the last couple of years, because of the pandemic, I don't know even my results yet the last couple of years. So that was also tough. But it didn't hit me until I signed those forms. I handled it so well. They said, oh, it's life-threatening. I'm like, oh, I guess it is. So I knew I conquered it. So I just got to keep going and, you know, live every day and just keep pressing forward without regret. I just love that quote. Do whatever it takes, right? Be the role model that we're meant to be, us guys, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're meant to be the breadwinners. We're meant to be the protectors. For thousands of years, we are the hunters, right? We got to make sure we protect.
So you're saying that. Can I ask? You were also earlier talking about going to the gym at 5 a.m. and you mentioned Jocko Willink. He's big on that. I think 4 a.m., 5 a.m. stuff. David Goggins. He spoke a lot about his workouts and the, you know, he's a crazy example. What's your day? What's your week? In terms of working out and health and that? What's your week or schedule look like for that?
So going back to what he said, whether you write it down on a piece of paper what your schedule is, I use Google Calendar or Calendly. That's great. So that keeps me accountable. obviously not having a rooster as your alarm. You just use your own, music to get an alarm going. Have everything prepared the next day. So whether it's coffee, if you don't like coffee, that's fine. But maybe have a breakfast that gets you going. So for me, 4:30 a.m., I put the alarm. I get up. Yeah, I'm kind of like not feeling like I want to go to the gym, but that's where logic has to come in. This is where discipline has to come in. I go right to the fridge, chug a bunch of pre-workout, take a cold shower, and then all of a sudden I do a nice stretch so I don't get hurt. I'm sure we had our share of soccer injuries sometimes when we didn't stretch, right?
Yeah.
I was a big advocate of that, right? Stretch for like 20 minutes and then
stretch, but don't overstretch.
Oh, overstretch, yeah.
Because that's
don't do too much.
overstretching is overexerting yourself,
Yeah.
and then you're actually diminish it. So they say this a lot of times if you're like pro athletes or just athletes in general, like don't stretch to the point where you're actually like overdoing it, because you will overexert yourself and then you will diminish your performance, which it's wild to think of, but it's possible.
And only you know your body, but don't do
exactly.
too much of it. So we do that, and then depending on the day, whether it's leg day or chest day or shoulder day, I have a routine, and then evidently you're going to plateau. You finish that workout, come back home. I do a protein shake. Intermittent fasting is one of the best things I've ever done. I've done that for so many years. I do it almost every day. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is
Unless
awesome.
I'm on vacation. That's the only time I don't do it. When I'm on vacation, I go on the seafood diet, and that's basically I see food and I eat it. Right? So you put a donut in front of me, and I'll eat that donut and ask for a second one at that point. But when I'm at home, I do not eat. Like, so for example, today, well, actually, no, today's not a great example, but I think yesterday I didn't eat until like 6 or something like that. So I got up a little bit.
I did that
later.
yesterday too.
Did you?
Yesterday. And the day before, actually. Yeah.
But doesn't it feel like it feel satisfying despite it at times, like, oh, but you just feel more productive.
You get used
at whatever
to
tasks
it.
you're up to doing, like
for me, like my kind of diet and routine has become very ingrained. It's almost kind of like a muscle memory thing, but it's just kind of ingrained where it's like, I know, because I eat, like I mentioned before, I only eat typically very keto. So like, my proteins, my vegetables, I stay away from carbs, sugars, and I've just in the early days, like you did keto as well. I don't know, have you done keto before?
I can't say I have, no.
No? But yeah, so keto is it's essentially high fat, moderate protein, and very low carbs and basically no sugar, right? When I was doing it in the early days, like when I first started last year, like I mentioned before, I was like 217 pounds, right? And I'm just like, okay, I need to figure out what to do about that. So right away I started researching, okay, because I remember you had recommended, because you and the wife had done keto.
Oh, so you're the one that gave him
that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they had really good results.
I was doing it, so this is before COVID, but I was doing it and I was going really hard at the gym. But it was because I was enjoying it, because I was going with 2 friends and I was going to an MMA gym. Right. So I was learning Muay Thai and
cool.
And so it was so much fun. We were going to, I think, 3 times a week to the gym. And it, great for me, sad for her. She was doing all the cooking, and she's an amazing cook, and it was awesome. I loved keto, and I recommended it to, if anybody wanted to lose weight. I lost like 30 pounds within, I think, a couple months, which was, huge for me at the time. And then COVID happened, the gyms closed, and we fell off of that. So.
Yeah, of course. I mean, sometimes
that hit me hard when they closed.
Yeah.
That sucked. Yeah. Going to Canadian Tire, Walmart, buying like weights, but they're all sold out. So I have to go over Amazon or buy resistance bands. It's just not the same. Yeah. I mean, it's some sort of activity. I get it, but it's just not the same.
Not at all.
So it's like you have to have that secondary outlet.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Not just one, but you have multiple, because you never know, like something like that would happen, right?
Yeah. But for me, I just remember like the whole kind of it became a habit. Right, it became a lifestyle, like I had mentioned when it came
non-negotiable
to
habit,
keto and exercising and stuff like that. Now I've been exercising less, but that's just because I've just been like overly busy, and I'm just trying to right now resort my schedule just so I can get back on track to what I was doing before, because what I was doing before was insane. Like I would literally fast sometimes until the moment I woke up until like 8 o'clock at night. I didn't eat a single thing except for maybe drink water and drink coffee with no sugar.
See, that's what I was going to say. Coffee without so many calories that you're over a surplus. If it actually worked out.
If you're going to have coffee, It has to be coffee with only cream, and the cream has to be at bare minimum table cream, which is 18%. Or there are people who use whipping cream. I haven't tried it, but the people that I do know who've tried it say it's absolutely delicious.
Is there sugar in whipping cream?
No. It's like a 35% fat.
Okay.
It's very. I mean, there might be minimal amounts of sugar, but it's very, very low.
Okay. I have to try that out.
Yeah. So I mean, at bare minimum, 18% table cream. Not half and half is okay, but don't drink milk, because milk is actually very high in sugar, which a lot of people are not aware of, right? If you go and read the label on the back of your milk container, you're going to realize that it's got a lot of sugar. It's not actually as good as you think.
That's why people like drink almond milk, right?
I guess, yeah. Okay. But I think the almond milk has sugar too, no?
I think people are doing almond milk more for staying away from the lactose.
Yeah,
the dairies.
Maybe they're intolerant to dairy.
But most of those almond milks and cashew milks and all that, most of those have sugars in them.
Very high in
I used to have it in my protein shakes, and I kind of eliminated it and just put water.
Yeah.
And frozen fruit.
Yeah.
By the way, all groceries I get are very high. Go to the frozen section; they're cheaper.
Oh yeah.
But it's like a very refreshing smoothie.
Right,
like, so good.
Right, makes sense. But yeah, it's just for me. Like at first, keto was kind of difficult because you're like trying to get used to it. You're used to not eating carbs, so your body's kind of like adjusting to it. You're like, yeah, what the fuck?
What are you doing?
What happened to the pizza and the pasta? Right?
Man, the cravings are good.
Honestly, I wasn't bad with cravings. It was just like my body was like just adjusting, but it only took a few days, and then after a little while, like 2-3 months. It just didn't even phase me.
You've mastered it.
It was
anything,
just like
a muscle can just get continuous movement from there and there and there.
Yeah.
You're gonna get more built, or you're gonna get more hardwired to that habit.
Like it's been over a year now, and my mom always like, oh, you can have a little bit of pasta, and I'm like, nope, no thanks. I can do without it. Right? Like it doesn't even phase me. Like there is times here and there where I will have a pasta, but being of Italian descent and growing up essentially with the Italian heritage and culture, we ate pasta every day. So it's like I've become kind of almost bored of it. Like it just doesn't even interest me anymore. Plus it's just kind of like ingrained in my head that it's like, nope, don't need the pasta. Pizza I love, but it's once in a while, right? So
there is also protein pasta that I fully recommend that you can get too.
Yeah, I've heard.
And there's not
of
really any sacrifice in taste because it really is all about the sauce. If you master the sauce.
But Alex, at the end of the day, I'm going to be honest with you. If I'm going to go and bother to make a protein pasta, I'm just going to go and eat a steak.
Well, you can have the steak and the pasta.
I guess.
If you're having one meal a day or two meals a day, then there you go. Right?
Yeah.
Why not? Oh, I love steak.
Or I can eat steak twice. Right? I don't know.
Speaking of steak, because I'm now all of a sudden craving it myself. Both of you, we got to go to the Chop Steakhouse.
Ooh,
I've heard of it.
My girlfriend works there at the location in Mississauga, but I've gone to the Burlington/Oakville border line one. There's one at the airport. Their steak bites are so good. It's an appetizer. It is absolutely amazing. And their chop burger is amazing. And their prime rib is awesome along with their steak.
I like prime rib.
We definitely got to hit that up sometime. It is absolutely... I'm a little bit biased, but it is really good.
Just because you went there?
Yeah. But like, I went there even before I met her. It was that good, right? But I'd say it's almost at the level of the Keg. Maybe at best close to it. But... Ruth and Chris Steakhouse, I think they're just a little bit higher than that, but these are like a newcomers to the game, less than 10 years. But I fully recommend it. It is so
try. I was gonna say I'll give them a chop, but Freudian slip, right? I guess I'll give it a try. Is it halal?
I'm
is that what you're looking at?
Just about to ask my wife to check if there's any halal options.
I think it came up on the list the other day. We went to go see the movie Sound of Freedom, and I think it was in that area that we were in. So we're like, Chop Steakhouse, but we weren't too sure if it was like.
Well, I mean, it's not.
Is that the one she checked?
No, that was Moxie's. I think.
Right.
Yeah, I think she was checking Moxie's. Moxie's actually has a decent ribeye. Right, I'm kind of a ribeye connoisseur. I love my ribeye, right? So Moxie's is like good. The Keg, in my opinion, as you know, it's a little overrated. It's very expensive.
It depends on the location. I know there's some bad experiences from other people from certain
I haven't had a bad experience. I won't say I've had a bad experience, but me going to the United States so often, And
that's not fair.
Based on it is fair though. It's just to prove that Canada's lame, right?
I mean, Austin. I can only imagine Austin, Texas, how good their stuff would be.
Oh, but that's like barbecue though. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of great steakhouses in Austin, but their barbecue joints are fantastic.
I know in Nashville they had some good steaks when I had it. That was some of the best steaks I ever had there. So.
But I think Nashville is more known for chicken. No.
Chicken, ribs, their mac and cheese was the best I've ever had.
I bet.
You look it up if you ever go around that area. It's called the Alamo. It could be maybe in the outskirts of Nashville, but it's called the Alamo, and hands down the best steak mac and cheese I ever had.
Nice.
Like Pat and Andy and Biggie would tell you.
Yeah.
Like we all went. Like it's that good. It was so good. But yeah, if you're comparing the keg to that's not even the same category.
I know.
It's like Pizza Nova to a low key.
But my point is, that the keg is supposed to be like this notorious steakhouse, and it's overrated. Like the value is not there. The amount of money that you're spending for their stuff, their prime rib is decent. I'll give them that. But their actual steaks, subpar at best. It's just there's nothing. The amount of money that you spend, the size of everything is not.
I will say the portion size are getting a little bit smaller every time.
And I get it. Like inflation is high, and it's costing the restaurants a lot of money, so it's hard to do business. But when I go to the States, I have a habit of going to Longhorn Steakhouse, and Longhorn Steakhouse is not anything spectacular. But it's like if you get a ribeye from there, it's really good and it's not expensive, right? So you can get a 16-ounce ribeye, I think it's 16 ounce, from Longhorn Steakhouse, and it's like $30 or something like that, US, which is like
really good.
40, 45
it's
tops.
Really good.
But I remember when we were on road trips, we would go like 2 times a week usually to Longhorn because they're everywhere. It's not that expensive and it fills you up and it's good. So for like 2 people, like with tip was coming out to like $90 Canadian after conversion tip, everything all said and done. Over here, $90, that's per person at the keg, realistically. So it's like the value comparison is like, what's going on here, right? Like we know we got some issues going on in Canada, but
yeah, I know.
Like, is the beef industry struggling that much? But in Alberta, oof.
By the way, question. Let's shift it a little bit.
Yeah.
Breakfast places. Is there still Perkins locations down there? Do you remember Perkins?
Perkins.
I don't know.
I think so. Yeah, I think
it was
I've
like Golden
there.
Griddle of like Canada, but Perkins was like there was Denny's, there was Perkins, there was IHOP.
Yeah,
but I don't know if Perkins still exists.
I'm pretty sure there is, and
it's
I'm
like
pretty
a breakfast
sure
place franchise, breakfast place.
Maybe I've heard the name.
Hang on, I'm searching.
I recommend not anyone having diesel on your plate in the morning.
Perkins
female
Perkins
bacon
restaurant and bakery. Yeah, I've been there. It sucks.
Oh, I've seen that.
It's horrible. It sucks.
Oh my god,
it's so bad.
I guess way back when I just won't eat anything.
Maybe. I mean,
or maybe they decreased the quality, right?
Drunk,
it's like Burrito Boys.
Food. Yeah.
It used to be so good, and all of a sudden it became like anymore? Multiple locations. Just the quality's just.
It happens. Yeah. It's the problem is that it was kind of like with Osmos. Do you remember Osmos when we tried it the very first time? The Streetsville one?
Oh my god, yes.
We went to a restaurant with my cousin.
Right
there. Yeah. You're there?
I'm pretty much 5 minutes away from there, yeah.
So we went there and we're like, man, this is so amazing. And then they started blowing up right after that. What happens is that they grow so quickly that these corporate head offices can no longer manage all the quality control. I have to say the one place that managed to do it right was Pizza Nova. It's not the best pizza in the world, but for a franchise in Canada, it's doing pretty good. Right?
They're really good.
Their quality is like, it's consistent. Right? No matter which location you go. I've never gone to a Pizza Nova and been like, this Pizza Nova, okay. There was one situation where I had the service sucked, but the food was fine, right? Consistency, like the ingredients, they've maintained the ingredient that they've been using for years, right? They haven't changed anything in that respect, right? But then you go to these other companies and they just grow too quickly. And Osmo is a great example of it because they have seriously gone to shit. Yeah. Recently, I found this one franchise. There might be one near you, but if you like shawarma,
love shawarma.
Shawarma Royal, I think it's called. And I'm gonna give them a huge shout out because I can tell that they're not busy enough. But the restaurants are beautiful. Number one, the quality is actually pretty good. I'm not gonna say it's Ontario, Ottawa level shawarma, but it's pretty damn good. Like the spices are good, the seasoning is good. Their pitas. delicious, absolutely fantastic. And they do like the veal and lamb mixtures. When they do the salads, it's like actually done proper traditional style, where they put the coleslaw on the salad, which is like such an uncommon thing for all these franchise places. And I think that's actually like a real like a traditional Lebanese style. You put coleslaw on the salad, right? I know Lebanese people eat a lot of coleslaw, from what I've heard anyways. But yeah, definitely a good place. If you're in the Ontario area, look it up and see if there's one near you, because you should try it. And they're open till 3 a.m. Oof. Right? Yeah. So sometimes when I leave this place and we're out of here by like, because we'll do the after hours sometimes, so we leave by like what, 12:30, 1 o'clock sometimes. And so I'll head down there. We get there by like 1:15, 1:30, and they're ready to serve me. They know me. They know my order now, because I keep going every couple of days, right? So it's got to that point.
Do you guys ever hit up Zet's?
I used to.
It's been years too.
Yeah.
It's been years too.
It's okay.
It used to be good.
It
used to be good. I mean, that's all I can say, because it's...
So there's a funny story with Zet's. Zet's was not actually what their original name was supposed to be. Their name was supposed to be Jets, but the Greek guy couldn't say Jets. So when he was ordering the sign to be made outside the restaurant, apparently this is a true story. You notice how there's a jet at the front?
I can't recall the logo.
Okay, so at the front of the actual restaurant, I don't know if it'll come up.
I just remember the
online,
banquet burger.
Yeah. So he was trying to get the sign designed, and the guy kept asking him like, "Oh, what do you want the name to be?" Zets. But he was trying to say Jets.
Oh my god.
But instead,
so wait a minute, like he couldn't pronounce the J?
Yeah, he couldn't pronounce the J. He kept saying it like a Z, like a Z or a Z or whatever.
It's like Cool Whip from a Family Guy.
Yeah, see? Oh no, it's Jets. That's something else. But yeah, apparently the original sign, I don't know if it's still there, but apparently Jets, and this is near Pearson International Airport. It's like right on Airport Road if you're in the area. You
can't miss it.
It's like a very popular place for Greek food, and they do all sorts of like diner style foods.
Like they make it on the spot. It's unbelievable. From the time I remember going there.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I remember we used to have like, our restaurant was kind of similar concept. I had a restaurant like years ago. We were on Eddystone, right up the street from the infamous Comiso Bakery. If you've heard of that place, they do a lot of boom boom over there, if you know what I mean. And I don't mean anything sexual. I mean literally boom boom. Like that place got. People died there. We'll just say that. So anyways, we used to own a restaurant that was like a Greek food, and we used to do a lot of diner style food, and we used to make like home style burgers. It's very simple, just full fat ground beef, garlic, salt, pepper, and milk. Don't use eggs to meld for burgers. Actually, milk is better because it doesn't dry out and it sticks together better than a lot of people use eggs, but eggs dry out very quickly, especially if you don't make the burgers right away. So actually try milk. I'm telling you, you won't. Maybe cream. I don't know. I've never tried cream. That probably don't do that. But do some milk instead of.
I don't know if I'll do the cream either.
Yeah, I don't know. That might be a little bit weird. I'm just trying to think.
You could be the guy to try it out first, all right?
Yeah, exactly. Because you've had my burgers, my homemade burgers before, right?
Yeah, very good.
So I thought they came out fantastic. It's just such a basic way to make a burger, right? And it's just absolutely delicious. Don't use none of that lean ground crap, because you need that fat, that full fat.
Well, there's good fats in the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Like you need those good fats, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like I'm obsessed with cottage cheese. I used to dislike it for some reason.
Can't do it.
Greek yogurt, cottage cheese. Put some raspberries, some blueberries, mix it, put a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of honey. It's almost like a dessert. It's just so good.
Diffuse the flavor if you're not into it.
And then if you put it in the freezer, it's like ice cream. It's so, I'm telling you, it's so good.
Definitely gotta
try that out. It's so good.
So we're kind of running out of time here, but I guess the last thing that we'll go into is you were telling me that you had like some crazy ghost stories. Well, tell us a couple of like your craziest ones that you can think of.
Before I talk about
ghost stories, just bring the mic a little.
Oh sorry. Before about ghost stories, I don't know if you guys ever seen online the ghost of Carmel, Maine.
No.
Have you guys seen that? Probably one of the craziest like paranormal videos I've ever seen. I don't even know how to explain it. Like you guys should we should check this out afterwards, where I'll describe what I saw. So basically, guy goes upstairs. It's a 2-story house, goes up to his second floor. It's his bedroom, and he sees this shadow thing from the window. But all of a sudden, from the window, it pinballs right under the bed. It went like
was
this.
It though? Like a light?
It's like a shadow. It looked like a big shadow.
Oh.
And he just hits pinballs right under the bed. The camera doesn't change. There's been so many things that they're trying to debunk it. And then all of a sudden he goes under the bed, it's gone, but it just goes and it just freaks me out every time I see it.
Yeah.
But you guys should check this out. It's called Ghost of Carmel.
Carmel, Maine.
Carmel,
Yeah.
Maine. And then there's going to be like a 10-second clip where the shadow just goes.
Shadow Man or Shadow
it's
Dude
a
or something?
show.
No. Well, he kind of did his own YouTube thing because he can't sell the place, so he's thinking of just talking about. If you go on YouTube, actually,
Where is it in Maine?
yeah, type in.
Oh, there it is.
I'm trying to find like a 10-15 second.
Wow,
clip.
the video quality sucks.
It's not that good. Go to the search.
Oh, I see. I think I might have actually seen that before. He turns into the room.
Paranormal stuff I've ever seen, at least from what I've seen. I'm all about all these paranormal channels. I love this stuff, right?
Oh wow, yeah.
Good
What the
lord.
hell was that?
Like, well, it'll be hard to. I have it saved on my phone, but it's just.
I hope I can find a better.
It's just like you see it.
Mm-hmm.
It just goes under the bed. It changes shape while it goes under the bed. And there's been so many other YouTube guys trying to debunk it to see if it's fake,
and they
it's
can't figure it out.
They can't figure it out. It's crazy. We got to look that up.
Interesting.
But I mean, my Aboriginal side, we are spiritual. So my dad is Italian. He's the Catholic side. My mom is the. It's funny because it's like she's not Catholic.
Yeah.
She believes in the Creator. What to us is God. So everyone believes in something, and in my opinion, I think you should believe in something to keep your mind at ease, right?
So is she more like agnostic, or does she actually?
No, she believes. Like it's not really a religion when it comes to the natives or indigenous, right?
Yeah, so that's more of
because she's Iroquois, right?
So it's more of like a type of spiritualism, right? You believe in like a creator, but it's more like intertwined with nature, if I'm correct.
In a
way,
it's
kind of like the how do you describe it? Like kind of like natural, right? Like it's your environment, right? Like you see kind of like the trees are like symbolic of God, so to say. Is that kind of how I'm kind of getting it a little bit?
A little bit, right? Yeah. Like there are several clans in Ontario. Like there's bear,
there's 6 nations, right?
Yeah. There's bear, there's turtle, there's deer, and I'm bear. Okay. So that's my clan from my mom's side.
So what does that mean?
Basically, I have a name in the Aboriginal language, and it means where the skies meet. So I was given a name when I was young. It's called Where the Skies Meet. It's pronounced Deholuyak. Oh, cool. That's what it's called. It does take apparently 10 to 20 years to master the language, so I'm not that good at all. But I mean, this is crazy. I've never seen it, but apparently every year we have a feast to celebrate our ancestors, like as if we never forgotten them. So apparently, from at least one person on my mom's side of the family, they would see a spirit of their ancestry, which means it's a sign that we have to do a feast. Right. So we would go to the longhouse, almost to the equivalent of other tribes, like a teepee, but it's a big long house,
big long wooden structure.
You got it, right? And then if it's not available, if it's raining or thunderstorming, then we just do it at someone's house, and we have to have all this food, but we cannot leave the table until it's all finished. And then we leave a couple of plates of food, and then we bury it in the backyard for the earth to take all of it in, to remind them that we still remember them, we still honor them, and it's all about legacy, is what I've always been preaching about this whole podcast, right? So it's just knowing your where you've come from. So in a way, I'm kind of like half pure Canadian, if you come to think of it, right? But that's pretty cool. This is a crazy story. It wasn't actually me that it experienced. It was my mom. I never knew my mom's dad, my grandfather on her end. He died before I was born, and my dad's side, I got to grow with him many years, and he unfortunately passed away in November. And a week before my grandfather on my dad's side passed away, he had cancer. We knew it was coming. My dad apparently was filling out some government like forms, and they're in the kitchen, and my mom's like, I think I smell like wine or something. And I know like we have wine in the cellar at my parents' place, so my dad's like, I don't smell wine. So he goes downstairs to check to see if there's anything spilled, comes upstairs, is like, there's no wine, but he doesn't smell it, but my mom does. So they eat their dinner meal. This is described to me, by the way. I wasn't there. And then after the dinner meal, my dad says, like, oh, if all of a sudden I smell the wine.
Wow.
So goes downstairs again, tries to find it. Obviously, we don't want to make sure it leaks on anything in the basement. So my mom's like, okay, go figure out what that is. I'll find your government papers and all that. He had to fill out some stuff. And she finds the forms. Under the form was a picture of my mom's dad who loved wine. Wow. And my dad's side, the Italian side, loved wine as well. And they still to this day couldn't find where that wine smell was, but it was as if both grandfathers never met in this lifetime. All of a sudden, were cheersing each other into the other side. Yeah, wow. That just still gives me the chills to this day, because I believe in that stuff. Yeah. But it was also, I mean, to anyone that's had cancer in their family, it's not pleasant. It's very painful, and to know that they are in peace and in the spirit world, that meant a lot to me. But that was a great story she told me about, and that's one of my ghost stories, but it's never personally happened to me. Yeah. I can probably say when I've been at home late at night, I thought I saw something at the corner of my eye.
Mm-hmm. I find a lot of times in darkness, depending on how susceptible you are to the paranormal, sometimes you see things
like pareidolia, right?
Yeah. It's like you see something in the darkness that when the lights are on, you don't normally see. Like there was one episode when we had with Brad where I mentioned the story of Mo and I walking up to an abandoned orphanage, and we both saw the same thing without communicating it right away. Holy. We both told each other afterwards, like, oh, there was this black shadow figure that was walking alongside us that we could both see, but we just didn't say anything because we didn't kind of want to start that freak out moment and end up running away, right? So yeah. But like the other night, I had a weird one. The other night, I was kind of in the middle of nowhere. I was filming a Randonautica video, and I stopped for a second. I had all the lights off completely, just standing there.
Where were you?
I was in, oh my God, why is it Silver Creek? So it's like north of, it's like kind of almost Shelburne. Nah, not really. More like Terracotta, but past that.
Love that area.
Yeah, that area is beautiful. So I was in Silver Creek. I don't really know which county that is exactly, but I go there pretty often because there's some crazy weird stuff happening in that area. But anyways, I was just standing there on the side of the road, had the car parked in complete darkness, because I like to do this in the middle of the night when it's just complete darkness. Just stand there in the dark, and then that's another area that's very, very quiet until a car drives by. But I'm like standing there, and I can see something that's standing in the middle of the road that I can't see when the lights are on. So I'll turn my flashlight on, there's nothing. And I'll turn it off, and I can see something. I swear to me, it looked like Jesus was standing in the middle of the road.
Wow.
Yeah, like Jesus was standing there, and you can see like a white robe, and you can make out that the figure has long hair.
What?
And I'm just like, what is going on right now? Like I'm seeing something, and I'm like, yo, Jesus, my boy, is that you? Right? Like
Did you like say anything?
I'm just kind of like looked. I'm like, oh, there's something there. Right, and I didn't like say out loud.
Okay, so you're like processing it, like what the heck am I
and I know I'm seeing something, but I just cannot figure out for the life of me. I'm just saying, like, to me, the only comparable thing is that's kind of what it looked like to me. I don't know why. It was very, very strange, but I don't know. I can't say that I saw Jesus. I'm not confirming that, but that's just, to me, that's what it looked like. And then when I turned my very bright flashlight on, there was nothing there, right? So
now, if you ran back that day before that moment, was there anything along the lines of your thought process that could have
Probably. I've been reading the Bible daily, so yeah. So a lot of times I'll listen to like the audiobook and I'll listen to it. And for me, like I don't like to listen to the Bible in the car because I can't process the information. I like to listen to it and also read the words as I'm going through it so I can process it, and then I'll pause every few seconds so I can do a little Google search, because there's certain words in the Bible that are a little bit more complex and maybe you don't know what the definition are. So I like to sit there and actually take my time as I'm reading it. So that could have been why, maybe because I was reading the Bible and I was just, thinking.
So maybe like a manifestation, possibly, right?
Maybe. I don't know what it was.
But did you feel like a presence?
I felt like there was something. I felt like there was definitely something there. And I can usually, I'm pretty in tune with that. So I can usually feel when there is a presence and I can usually decipher what it is. And I know that for a fact because, so when I go on trips with my friends Chelsea and Lamar, we will go. So she's a very, very good medium, to the point like she's a practicing witch, like she does like Wicca and stuff like that, and she's getting pretty good at it. She still obviously is she'll tell you that she's a practicing witch, but medium wise, like she's very good at picking up on if there's a presence or if there's something maybe there. And I know more often than not that if whatever I'm sensing, I will ask her if she's sensing the same thing, and she will say, yeah, that's exactly what I'm getting, right? So it's like, for example, we went to this place, it's called the Thomas House. It's actually in Tennessee, a few hours from Nashville, kind of like in the middle of nowhere. I think it's in this bumfuck town called Red Boiling Springs or something like that. And it's super haunted. Like this place has a lot of spirits going on around that place.
What's the history of that place like?
So it was I believe a family built home originally, and then I think they turned it into a hotel, or they built it as a hotel originally, and it's always been a residence for the family. Beautiful house, beautiful property, and it's a very, very unique place, and there's lots of stories of the people who, over the last 150 years or so, that have obviously generations of people who've lived there, who've passed on.
Probably ancestry.
Yeah, a lot of times it's ancestry. But there was one. So when we got there was this older gentleman, super nice guy, and he was telling us a story of this one time. He's elderly, so this one time he was like in the main hall eating area. So basically you come into the house and there's like the front desk, there's like a really beautiful staircase area, and then there's like these two doors that go into this big hall, and which is where everybody eats, and then behind that is where the kitchen is. So the story was that he was there one day or night, I don't remember if it was day or night, it's been a while, and I just remember he fell on the floor and he couldn't get back up because he was elderly. And I remember when we met him, like you can see that he was like struggling to walk very, very slowly and whatever. It was a very slow pace. Plus it's Tennessee, everybody's slow paced there, right? So basically he said he fell over and there was this child. It was a boy, maybe 6 years old, came up to him and basically was just like staring at him, and he looks up, he's like, oh, hey little boy, can you go get your parents and get me some help? And this boy like wasn't doing anything. He's like, are you okay? And the boy's just not responding, and then all of a sudden the boy ran off and just disappeared. And then later on he saw somebody else in the place after he eventually got some help, was able to get back up, and he's like, is there a family with a little boy in the house right now? They said, no, there's literally no one here. It's just you and I. Yeah. So there was no little boy. He just saw, and he doesn't know what the connection to this little boy was. However, when we were filming or investigating that night, we both were able to connect to this little boy. We both felt the presence of exactly the same thing. And we were kind of in a way communicating with him and trying to figure out why he was there, and like did he realize that maybe a lot of times they don't know that they have passed on, right? So they get stuck in these places and they haven't been able to move on towards the light, so to say, or go to heaven.
Was it a good presence?
Yeah, it was literally a little boy. I don't remember there being any negative presences there. There was definitely some startling presences, but I guess it's just because it was such an old place that like if something took a step, off in the distance, you would hear it very loudly because it's such an old house. Yeah, like, you know, the wonky floorboards and things like that. But yeah, honestly, that place was like super unique. I'd love to go there. I'd love to actually, in a place like that, spend like a week and just film like, you know, 5 to 7 days worth of videos just all in one shot at this one location, because it was just really cool. Very big, and there was a lot of like, you know, knick-knack type of stuff, and it was just a really, really cool setup. And yeah, definitely go check out the Thomas House in Tennessee, but because they were super cool. It was cheap. It was like $50 a night. Yeah. So he's like, yeah, that'll be $50 a night. And I love their accents in Tennessee. It's so amazing. So I remember when I first called the guy to try and get some information to see if I could book the place, and he's like, hello. All right. And I'm just like, hey, can I see if I can do a paranormal investigation? He's like, no problem. Let me go get my book. And he leaves for like 2 minutes, and he comes back. I don't know what happened. I guess the lines somehow crossed. I mean, you got to remember, they're literally in the middle of nowhere in some valley in the Appalachians or whatever, and it's just like their phone, I don't know what happened to the phone. So he comes back on, he's like, hello, and hello. I could hear him, but he couldn't hear me, right? And he's like, oh, Christ. Hung up the phone. I had to wait like 10 minutes, and for some reason the call wouldn't go through, but I just messaged. They're like, don't worry about it. Just show up and you'll be fine. So they were really, really sweet, though. It was him, and I think it was his mom. And then I think they've taken in their 2 grandchildren, because they had a little bit of a crazy story. I think both of his sons both took their own lives within 6 months of one another. So it's basically him, his mom, the 2 boys, and I think there's a caretaker. I don't remember what the caretaker's name is.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting place. Wild stories in that location that I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but I just remember them being pretty crazy. But yeah. But I think that is pretty much it. We've already gone over 2 hours. I had some other things that I was going to ask you about, but I guess we're going to have to make a part 2. So
teaser trailer coming.
Yeah, teaser trailer coming. Yeah, we'll probably have maybe like a short of this episode somewhere. But yeah, thanks for coming out. And
with respect, guys.
Thank you very much.
It's been a blast.
Thank you.
You're invited on, and anytime in the near future, if you want to come back, feel free. But yeah, that's pretty much it for tonight. Thanks to all of you guys for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you're new. Turn notifications on. You can also check us out, like Moshi said, on
Spotify. So YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating. That would help a lot. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching.
All right, cool. Anything you want to shout out, Alex? Anywhere you want people to go and follow you?
You know what? I mean,
TikTok,
be awesome.
maybe,
yeah, like Canadian Hybrid, that'd be great.
Sure.
Canzian AMC. If you guys ever need a second financial opinion, I'll be more than glad to help. And I'm here just to help lives give the results to get you guys where you need to go, and just make sure that the mental toughness and the discipline's there. It's going to carry you guys to the next level. Keep climbing those mountains. That's how I'd love to just tell everyone out there, just become inspired.
Yeah, exactly.
Have a mentor. That's very critical too.
Love that. I love listening to you today, man.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you for watching us live here in the studio. Well, live, after live. I don't know. I don't even know anymore. But, yeah, that is pretty much it. We will see you guys in the next episode. See you later.
Later.